force. Are you kidding me?
Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Young.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Foreign in the building. How is everybody?
And we have a special guest on the show here today on Kick to the Gut. My goodness, it's Mr. GoodMicWork Commentaries himself, Greg Morgan.
Thank you. What's up, guys? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
After like a 6-minute prologue,
I know,
of us
right?
just shooting the breeze,
Yeah.
and talking a bunch of shit. I mean, it's an honor to meet you. I think for our listeners, especially those who never heard of him, never heard of GoodMicWork, or haven't seen your videos on YouTube, because we do have a lot of fans here in Singapore, around Southeast Asia, and they really enjoy it, especially when we introduce them to new stuff like new wrestlers, indie wrestlers, and there's a huge Southeast Asian scene as well, wrestling scene here in Singapore.
Nice.
So it'll be really, really cool for them to get to know, like, for me personally, one of my biggest wrestling podcasters, my heroes, basically, one of my idols, the people, somebody that actually inspired me to start this podcast, and to know, like, you actually shape a lot of my perspective as like a wrestling commentator, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah.
So how did you get started on this whole commentary route and, giving reviews of wrestling shows? How did that come about?
It was 2010, so it's been a little over 10 years now. It was kind of like we were talking before we went live here about the TNA stuff. And I was kind of surfing around YouTube, and basically I was working a full-time job, crazy job, would never allow me any time to do something like this. And I was going to move to the West Coast out here to California. So I left my job early, like 4 months early, to prepare for the move. So I could do research, figure out where we're going to live, pay for everything, that sort of stuff. So I had all this free time. So I was kind of looking around on YouTube, and I saw some videos of people that I considered to be not that bright. And it was enough to, I guess, it was enough to trigger me into like giving my own opinions. And I had just picked up my very first iPhone. Never had an iPhone before. So I just got it a couple weeks later, and I was playing with it on the couch one day, laying down on the couch. And I was like, oh, look at that. It's got a voice recorder. So I just turned it on and just started spitting out some random stuff. And then I didn't even know how to put it to YouTube. I had no idea. So kind of looked around. I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And figured it out and put an image with it, threw it up on YouTube. And then somehow it got a few hundred views. Somehow I got a few hundred subs. And then it just started snowballing. And that was pretty much it. It was like total fluke, total just on a whim. Just, I wonder if I'll, put this on YouTube for fun kind of thing. Just because I felt like I had so much pent up wrestling stuff to get out that I've never really talked to anybody about, really, and I was like, I hear all these new opinions from the new generation of fans, and I felt like they need to learn a thing or two, kind of. That was my like my arrogant opinion at the time. So that was the only reason. It was just a complete fluke, and it had meant to be a hobby, never meant to be taken seriously. As a matter of fact, I would go weeks, if months sometimes between posts, because I hadn't created a schedule, hadn't had an audience that I felt an obligation to yet. I was just doing it for fun. And sometimes you wouldn't even see me for weeks at a time until the subscriber count started getting more. Then I started getting more into it. Then it became more fun to where I was learning things and video editing. And like I said earlier, being on camera and doing stuff like that. And then as the subscribers grew, and I realized, this is not something that I can just ignore now, because in the first couple of years, I was thinking, if I'm over YouTube, I'll just stop doing it. You'll never see me again. I'll never even post another video, won't even nothing or whatever. But then as it got going, I'm like, I don't think there's no turning back now, kind of thing. So, and it's been a blast. And since I moved to California, I've also had a job that's allowed me to do this, because that's a big deal, because I'm a, full-time career and stuff. You're working 60, 70 hours a week. There's no way. It's really hard to do something like this, really like religiously, and doing on a weekly schedule and be there for your audience who is expecting you, kind of thing. So I've also been really lucky, like my career here in California, like it just allowed me the time to do this. So really that's it. Like without that, I don't know if YouTube would even be an option. So yeah, the whole thing started as a fluke and then turned out to be something pretty fun.
So what is your daily schedule like? Because I know for us, right? I mean, we have regular jobs as well, but to do this podcast as well, it seems like, okay, we're already putting out a lot of time. This is a hobby thing. We don't know where this is kind of going, right?
Yeah.
Like for yourself, you put out so much content. How is a regular day like for you?
It's pretty simple. Like, my work schedule is not that bad to where I have most of the afternoons off before I go in. And then I work until right around this time at night, maybe 11 o'clock, but I'm a night owl. So I stay up like super late. So any like editing or work I need to do, wrestling shows I need to watch, notes I need to make, I can accomplish that, or overlays or thumbnails, all that stuff I can do kind of late at night, and I get all my kind of ducks in a row. And then whenever I have my scheduled podcast or whatever, I usually just, I have it all ready. So I have a kind of a system down. So my normal everyday, like probably only one day a week, I do absolutely nothing related to the channel. Probably only one. Every single night I'm at least doing something. Right. Like answering emails or doing something with Patreon or getting together a pod. Like I'm doing a live stream tomorrow night on Money in the Bank 2011, the Summer of Punk. That's a Patreon requested one. So, last night I spent all the time getting that together. I'm going to watch the pay-per-view tomorrow morning, put my notes down, and go live tomorrow in the evening. So I play it all day by day, but for the most part, a little bit in the afternoon, a lot late at night. And then I have certain days off, like Mondays, to do the Raw reviews. I take off every pay-per-view Sunday. I have a very flexible job. Like they give me anything I want. So luckily I can kind of create my own schedule. Where that's a big help.
I mean, there's that too. There's the actual watching of the show. Like, forget about actually, doing the podcast and talking about the shows, right? Like, I mean, that's 3 hours of Raw a week, 2 hours of SmackDown, NXT, AEW. Do you watch every single one of them religiously?
It's a chore. It is.
Well, like, sometimes it can be a chore. Sometimes it's fun to watch.
Yeah,
you get it right.
Yeah, so for the most part, every Monday I'm watching because I'm off. I make myself available every Monday. So I watch that and go live right after. Wednesdays, I'm usually home to watch it. So I usually kind of refresh my memory the following day with because I won't like watch the shows and make all my notes right there. I'll kind of refresh it the next day. Right. And then when it gets to SmackDown, I usually decide. I'm usually working Friday night. So if it's a great show, I'll watch it. If not, I'll catch the YouTube clips. And that's it. And then I'll make my notes for the news. But yeah, watching 4 shows, I'm able to do it, but just barely. If there was something else added, I don't know what I would do. So
I think we all feel that right now.
It's
with
rough.
The 4 shows. There's a lot of wrestling out there. Are the Wednesday night wars a thing for you? Because I mean, here in Singapore, we essentially get it sort of on delay anyway, and a lot of us won't wake up early to watch it live. So we will sort of like I will watch NXT tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So I get to watch AEW today.
Because here they're on at the same time. So you do kind of have to choose. And my formula usually is like watch Dynamite, catch up on NXT, unless the card's really stacked for NXT, then I'll reverse it kind of thing. But yeah, I do. It is a little bit more of a war here because you do have a choice to make, like which one you really want to watch and which one you want to catch on the replay. But it's nothing like what WCW and WWE was. Right. In terms of those wars, this is much smaller and the ratings battle is much smaller and a lot less meaningful, but it's there and it's something, and we haven't had anything like this since 2001. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, I feel here like there is a little bit more of a battle because, you go on Twitter too. If I'm on a Wednesday night and looking on social media, you just have a bunch of people spitting off their useless opinions on whatever show they think is better and or whatever. And then they're biting each other's heads off and stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to stay out of that and just watch the damn show.
So what do you think of All Elite Wrestling, especially they've passed like the 1 year anniversary after Double or Nothing, right? Yeah. In its 1 year of existence, what's your initial impression of it?
I think they're doing great. I mean, as somebody that's watched promotions start before and seeing them come in, we've seen ECW when they tried before the buyout, when they tried to do the deal with Spike TV and how terribly they were treated. They didn't get any promotion. They didn't get advertising. The ratings were crap. The network didn't care about them, and, in WCW in its final days, TNT wanted to just unload them at any cost, get them out of here kind of thing. So AEW, one of the biggest things I think is helping them is the fact that they got a network that wants them, promoting them, plugging them. They don't look at TNT or they don't look at AEW as just this wrestling thing that they're stuck with. I think that they named a title belt after it. So I think the TV deal helps. The money behind them helps. And the fact that fans are so desperate and thirsting for something new. This is the best chance I think we've seen to actually really have competition. Even though really they're very, very small compared. I mean, they're barely beating NXT, but it's still there. And we've already seen lots of people jump over there and say, hey, look, another place to go. So, and the fact that they're giving us excitement, that's all. I mean, more Dynamites are good than bad. And that could not be said for the same year of Nitro. And in 1995, when they started, prior to Hall and Nash coming over, it was bad. It was not good. High heel shoes and Malls of America and Dungeons of Doom. and it was hokey and crap. It just wasn't good. So I think AEW's had a better first year than Nitro did. I think that's all about to change now because AEW didn't get Hall and Nash, where, you know, Nitro did, and then the NWO took off and there was no stopping them. But at least for that first year, I think they've done better, you know, than Nitro as far as like from an entertainment, maybe not ratings, but entertainment wise, I think they're putting on a better show than WCW was. So I give AEW a ton of credit because it could have been worse. It could have just been, you know, a cluster. It feels like the Khans and, you know, Tony Khan are just they're in on this, you know, they want, you know, they're not just, it's just different how the vibe's coming off. Like I trust them. I think they're going to make the right decisions and do the right thing.
Do you think that was a turning point in AEW's history when they realized, I feel like for me anyway, watching the product, it was the start of this year where they really just turned the corner, because previously they had still been doing a lot of these flip-flop sort of matches, a lot of flippy shit, right?
Yeah.
And then along the way, and you know, on the podcast, I've been bitching about this for the past, like last year, but this year they sort of like turned the corner and sort of realized, okay, let's forget about this whole, you know, they've been pushing this whole sports-based presentation, as it were. And like we said right from the start, they just need to ditch that and just realize, hey, you're a pro wrestling company.
I understood what they were going for because fans like that, but it clearly wasn't going to be the case when you're just as silly and goofy as WWE is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
I think they should have just embraced the fact that they are a pro wrestling company and they don't try to like, because I think one of the early criticisms that we actually mentioned was the fact that they tried so hard to use all these statistics, tried to do a ranking system, but it doesn't really affect, you know, the matches.
Yeah, and one thing I will say for them that I've noticed so far, it seems like if they've noticed something isn't working, they haven't been like WWE, like, we're going to give it to you anyway. They're changing it. They dumped the Brandy faction. They've done a couple of things. They're like, this isn't working, let's stop. So if these rankings and stuff, if people are like shitting on it, I think they'll either change it or abort it or something. I don't feel like they're going to have that Vince mentality to where, too bad, don't like so-and-so. Well, now I'm going to have them win every single WrestleMania main event for the next 6 years just because you hate them, kind of thing. So I don't feel like they have that spite to them. Like, they will understand that they're new and there's a learning process, and you're going to do stuff that isn't going to work, and you're going to do stuff that might even contradict what you're trying to say, like with the sports kind of. But I think they thought that's what fans needed to hear, you know, because fans want, like wrestling fans, especially ones, it's hard for us to be wrestling fans, you know, especially if you want to tell somebody else that's not a wrestling fan that you are a wrestling fan. They're like, you watch that crap? So I think most of us feel better as fans if it has that more sports mentality. That's why a lot of like hardcore fans are such big Japan fans and stuff, because, you know, because you have a little bit of, although Japan's goofy too, but you have more of that sports athletic competition feel, where in WWE, it's almost unrecognizable now, even though you have, that's still the best talent roster in the world. It doesn't have that sports mentality. So I think AEW was going for that, but then quickly realized with some of the characters they have, you know, that's this rankings and this, you know, I get wins and losses matter. Great. No problem. You can even have the rankings. I don't care. But trying to say you're sport while you're more sport than other pro wrestling companies is BS. Yeah. You know, they're not. So, but I also think they're smart enough to know that. It might just be their, you know, really diehard loyal fans that might say that and repeat it and believe it. I don't know. But
you brought up a great segue actually, because one of the next questions I wanted to ask you was, okay, here in Singapore, definitely New Japan is a huge part of, like, you know, the wrestling fans here definitely look up to the product there, and of course it's an Asian product as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Yeah,
so for you, when did New Japan like catch your attention in terms of like you started like taking notice of what happens over there? I understand Chris Jericho definitely brought a lot of eyes from the West to Wrestle Kingdom. So was that where you started to take notice?
It was on and off. Like I go back to the All Japan days, you know, and I remember I used to tape trade, you know, for All Japan. And then I've always had a love for it because I've known all, you know, the major players. I've watched the Stan Hansens and the Vaders and, you know, and a lot of the American wrestlers that have gone over there. But then there was a period of time there where I didn't really follow Japanese wrestling at all anymore, other than just a little bit. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I started looking into it a little bit more, because I started seeing people like Will Ospreay and, you know, and Okada and Jay White and even Kenny Omega and stuff. And I was aware of it and I would watch it, but it wasn't until Jericho got there. Wrestle Kingdom was my first night as a subscriber to New Japan World, and I haven't looked back since. So, you know, it's now been a few years and I watch it regularly. So I'd probably say Jericho got me more into it full blown prior to that, I was eyeballing it. A little bit prior to that, I wasn't looking at it at all. And then back when I was younger in the 90s and stuff, I would keep tabs on it, magazines, tapes, things like that. So I've always been aware of it and had a deep respect for Japanese wrestling, but only kind of really strongly followed it when I could, had time, or when I was interested in it, pretty much. But that's cool that it's a big deal where you are. You know.
Yeah, and another cool thing is because you mentioned Chris Jericho. So Chris Jericho is like the equalizing factor between AEW and New Japan. It seems like he has, even at his age, where his current status in his career, he still seems to be on the pulse of what's in trend for wrestling. Is he really the GOAT?
He might be. I mean, because when you look at what he does, I mean, this guy's got a band and he travels full time, and he's 50 years old, and he's working as if he's a starving artist. Like he's got to go. Yep. If I was Jericho, I'd be sitting on you'd never see me again. I'd be sitting at my home and just soaking in my millions or whatever. And I went on the Jericho cruise in January.
Yeah.
And that gave me a really big understanding for how hard he worked, because he was literally booked every hour of all 4 of those days. Wow. He did 4 different podcasts, 3 wrestling matches, 3 live sets with Fozzy. He met all 2,000 people on the boat. He always had something. I don't know when he slept or how he slept or anything. And when you're old like that, you're tired. So I don't know how. I just don't know where he finds the energy to just go all the time. So just that, and plus his ability to go and do things and reinvent himself somewhere else and say, I don't need the WWE. I've got Fozzy. I can go to Japan. I can do whatever. I've always loved guys like that didn't have all their bread and butter totally in WWE. Mm-hmm. Guys like Brock, who did UFC and did other things. Guys like The Rock, who went off and do movies. Cena, same thing. Anybody that doesn't need the WWE, I like it when WWE needs them more than they need WWE. That's like, if I was a wrestler, I'd strive to be that. So I think Jericho the greatest. I mean, in the same breath as Bruno, Hogan, and all these guys, I don't know. But in terms of, there's never been anybody like him, because he doesn't seem like a Hogan. He's not coming back for paydays. Like, look, he's going to work with Orange Cassidy at Fyter Fest. He's got the future of the business in mind a lot more than the future of his bank account, I feel. Like, yes, he's getting paid handsomely. Yes, I'm sure these paychecks don't hurt, but he doesn't come off as somebody who's greedy, can't let go, doing it for the money. He's legitimately trying to, like, when Hogan went to WCW, he was working with all his friends. Yeah. Jericho's working with Pineapple Pete, with Orange Cassidy, with all these guys, trying to give him a rub, because that might be a story for them to tell later on in their career. And I just think that's an awesome thing to do. And I would do the same. Know who you are, know you're Jericho, know you're a legend. I'm going to win matches. I don't have to job to everybody, but giving somebody a rub, can be equally as valuable, I think, sometimes. So I admire the hell out of Jericho. I think he's good for the business. And plus he carries himself well. We've got a business full of black guys, drug addicts, deaths, so if Jericho goes on a talk show and he represents wrestling, I feel comfortable as a wrestling fan, with him representing us, because he's going to be well-spoken. He's not going to be an idiot. He's going to know what to say and how to say it. And there's not many of those who won't turn it into an interview about themselves. Right. Kind of thing. So I respect
I dare say that at least 80-90% of AEW's current success is owed to Jericho. Would you agree with that?
I would. I absolutely would, because he was because he's probably had a lot of influence too, just in what he's recommended, maybe ideas, or and probably maybe even telling people, hey, you don't want to do this, you want to do this instead. Yeah. And mentioning the Jericho cruise on the last night there, they gave him big props. They did a big kind of celebration in the ring. They threw out the turnbuckle pads. All the AEW wrestlers were there, but they made a point to really thank Jericho. They're like, without him coming here, we might have not have gotten the TV deal. Tony Khan, Cody, everybody thanked Jericho immensely, along with Moxley. But Jericho was really like, he kind of got the ball rolling. He was the big figurehead in that initial press conference that 16 people attended. When they announced everything, Jericho was the, kind of the headliner for that.
So who do you think could be the next sort of, like you mentioned, like the Hall and Nash, like the next big signing to come into AEW? Who do you think would really sort of, take them to the next level, you reckon?
Yeah, nobody. There's only one name. There's only one game-changing name.
Okay.
Punk.
Yeah, right.
He's the only one, I think, that's showing up on either company, really, but especially on Dynamite, would break the internet.
Right.
In a way similar to Hall and Nash, because that would be such a big, oh my God, he's finally back kind of thing. it's completely different way because, with Hall and Nash, they made it seem like they were WWE guys and all that. That was what made that so interesting. Punk would just be the overall surprise, like, holy crap, he's back. But other than that, WWE doesn't have those people anymore because back then, losing Hall and Nash was a big loss. Huge. They only had a few main eventers at the time, where now their roster's huge. Yeah. They could lose Roman and Strowman and they'll be fine. Ratings won't go down. They'll be WWE. Right. Where two big names back in '96 was a completely different story. Even losing Roman wouldn't hurt them. Yeah. Based on where they are now. True. So I don't think there's anybody that can turn the tide, except maybe a CM Punk. Or if you wanted to say a Rock or a Goldberg or something, but they're not going to go over there. Yeah. So you
brought up a very good point though. It seems as though currently WWE has a problem creating those mega stars. There was a period where they always put the bandwagon, hitch them on like a John Cena, hitch them on a Stone Cold and The Rock. But it seems right now WWE is just focused on making WWE the main thing. Yeah.
They're the ice capades. You're not there to see anybody. You're there to see the show. You're not there to see one person. And I think they don't want to do that because back in the day, they were relying on one star, and the whole system was so fragile. What if Hogan got in a car accident? And what if what happened to Magnum TA happened to Hogan when he was champion? Austin, same thing. Austin had that bad neck after the pile driver. They were hanging on by a thread. What if in 3 months into his title run in '98, the doctors are like, you can't wrestle anymore? That would have devastated WWE. So I think they realize that that's too much risk to put, especially now that they're publicly traded and there's so many stockholders and shareholders, to put all of this behind one wrestler is just way too risky. So now people buy tickets to WrestleMania before you know what one match on it. Where I attended WrestleMania 3, Hogan and Andre. Nobody would have bought tickets to that, if it wasn't Hogan and Andre. Right, right. Like you bought tickets for that. Now you're buying tickets for WrestleMania kind of thing, where back in the day you at least wanted to know what some matches were and stuff. So I think that's a big part of it, and they don't want to go back to that. They don't like, a lot of people are saying, who's going to be the next star? Even Cena, even though he's the closest thing to that, he was not the next Rock or Stone Cold, not even close. He didn't have the love from the fans and everything. I mean, WWE hitched their trailer to him, but even Cena, what was the height of his popularity, do you think? Or the height of his push, like 09, 08, 10, somewhere in there maybe?
Probably 2007 was the start where it was that Cena and Michaels.
Yeah, so even then, if they would have lost Cena in 07, I don't think it would have been enough to cripple them. They still got Batista. They still got a bunch of other people they can do instead of Randy Orton and all that. So it would have been a loss, don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't have nobody would have been like, oh, TNA is going to put him out of business because Cena left. I don't think it was like that. And I think WWE, that was a conscious effort, I think, to not put all their eggs in one wrestler basket again, because it's too fragile. What if something happens, So, and that makes us suffer. That's just because now we can't get that one star that, I've seen Austin and Rock live. I've seen those pops in person, and you damn near get trampled, by people because they all just want to get a piece. Where now everybody's just on their phone. Nobody cares. You're just in the crowd. People even barely pop now. When people come out there, where, when I had a couple of front row seats for some Austin matches, and I was like scared, scared for my life, because it's just, you're just being bombarded, and especially at a house show where there's no security. Back in the day, it was dangerous almost, just how rabid they were. The Beatles, and you don't have any John Lennons now. It's just the way it is.
I feel like it's kind of a bit of a shame as well for us living outside of the US or North America, right? Because we do get the tours once in a while. Like, they do tour Japan, they have toured Singapore, but we've never gotten like a Rock or Stone Cold perform. I mean, The Rock has come to Singapore, but he came for like a movie, sort of interview thing. So, I mean, we've had AJ Styles, we've had Chris Jericho, we've had Roman Reigns, but you're right. I mean, they weren't ever at that level of, The Rock or Hogan or even Triple H.
That's a whole different experience, like from a Roman or something like that, just to see like the way the crowd was for a Hogan entrance or a Rock or Austin entrance. Man, it was so different now, I don't know.
And, which is something we've talked about on the show as well, because we don't realize, a lot of us here anyway, don't realize that over in the US, those guys are touring all the time. So you can't always have like, your headline, big money guys on the card in these live shows. So you have to sort of make all these other guys sort of, okay, he used to be champion. We can let him headline. Like you could have a main event at some town with Jinder Mahal. Oh, former WWE champion, right?
Yeah.
You can still sell that card.
Right. Yeah. So at least you're going to have that stuff on, on paper to say this guy's going to be here, or whatever. So that probably helps. And I was kind of curious how it's like, and like how many shows. I know they do tours and stuff, but how often and how long you have to wait, to get something. And then if you do, what kind of show it is, probably just a live event or something.
Yeah, it's like a house show. Like once every 2 years, we get them here.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, the most recent time they came was actually last year. This was, I think, sometime in June 2019.
Yeah.
And the main event, which was pretty awesome for us, was AJ Styles versus Nakamura.
Oh,
no,
man.
Seth Rollins versus Nakamura. Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad at all. Heck yeah.
They did a title, like it's for the title for the Universal Championship.
Nice.
And and I think if I'm not wrong, they had the club, the OC before they turned heel coming over.
Okay.
And I think at that point in time, the OC wasn't really that hot over in the US, right? I think they weren't being pushed yet, but the respect that they were given for, especially for AJ Styles, especially us knowing what he did in New Japan, he literally he smiled. He could hear the smile. You can see the smile.
I bet. Finally, he's like, some real fans here.
Some respect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good on WWE for realizing where they were too, and saying these fans would love to see this match. Instead of just giving them what they would give to fans in Detroit here or something. They know at least they're conscious of who their audience is and what they might want to see, and hey, just give them a fun main event that we might not do here.
Yeah.
And another awesome thing is, I think, about house shows being there, and house shows, it seems like the wrestlers are having so much more fun. They are more loose. So one great example from last year's card. The match that stole the show is something that you will not expect, Greg. It was actually the Revival versus Hawkins and Ryder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I had a blast, huh?
The Revival, bro, were being total heels because me and Young, we were front row. And they pick a fight with us.
Yeah, they put us out. So
they literally, it was caught on camera. So I think it was Dash or what. He passed by us and he like pretended he wanted to smack.
I was like, and he started laughing. It was great heel work, basically.
It was that day that me and Young were legit Revival fans. Like, okay, these guys are awesome at what they do.
Yeah, they're from my old home state. I like the Revival a lot, and I've been to a ton of live events and house shows, and those are some of the most fun because you can watch the rest, especially if like how you guys were front row. I've been front row a few times for house shows, and watching the guys goof off in the ring is so fun because they're not on TV. They can have fun in there. They can just kind of go through the motions, and they just do silly stuff that just to entertain themselves. It's like a night off for them, and the fans don't care. We're not like offended that we're not getting a 5-star classic. They like to kind of see the goofing off too. House shows can be fun, and it's a fun atmosphere, and you don't have the pressure of live TV, and nothing's going to matter at all. Have no bearing on storylines or anything like that. So it's really fun just to kind of watch them have a good time in there, goof off, talk to each other, totally break kayfabe. And I like that. It's been some of the best moments.
Yeah. During which era were you like a complete fanboy where you're always going to shows, always like front row trying to go to house shows all the time?
Yeah, that would have been 96 through probably 03 or 04 was hardcore. I mean, I was going to multiple pay-per-views, multiple Raw, Smackdowns, house shows per year. Got backstage a few times. Got to know on a small level Vince McMahon's secretary Beth, who worked for him for about 20 years, and she was great. It was like literally anytime I called up there, because that's how lame I was as a crazy fan, I would call directly to Vince McMahon's office.
Wow.
And of course he wouldn't pick up, she would, and she talked to me every time. How you doing, Greg? What can I do for you? Kind of thing. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in Detroit. I'm going to go to a show, and I noticed you guys are in town, so I'm going to go. She goes, okay, just when you get your tickets, let me know where you're sitting, and we'll come get you at intermission or whatever. And Dave Hebner, Patterson will come and get me and bring me back, and I can meet the wrestlers and all that shit. So she did that for me for a couple times. And it was great because back then everything's more accessible. They would actually answer the phone from a fan, where I don't think you can get through to anybody now if you call WWE just straight to them.
Right.
But back in the night, but back in the day, I was pretty persistent. Like, I don't want to just go to shows. I want to get I'm the best fan you got. You need to let me back there, kind of thing. And I would almost didn't take no for an answer. She was so nice. And so from then on, whenever I called, if they were in town, she'd pull some strings for me. So it was very cool. So I was able to see a lot during those years, which is really the best years of Attitude Era and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I was at a lot of very famous Raws. I've seen title changes and great and big events happen in person. It's been awesome. So I'd say that time period, I was pretty hardcore with it. And then I kind of only eyeballed the product from 04 to 2010 until I started the YouTube. And then it forced me to dive back in, because wrestling was never going to leave me, but I wasn't going to be the psycho Attitude Era fan that I was as I got older until the YouTube started. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm balls deep again. So right back into wrestling. So that's kind of, but I'd say those Attitude Era years were the biggest as far as me going to shows, but I'd always been a fan ever since probably 1980.
What is your earliest memory of pro wrestling?
Dusty and Billy Graham. Dusty Rhodes and Billy Graham from Madison Square Garden. It was Dusty had come up from Florida. Graham was champ. Eddie Graham and Vince Sr. had struck a deal to send Dusty up and work a series of matches with Billy Graham. And they did 3 that spanned a year. It was 77 through 78 and 79, something like that. And it was 3 matches. And I didn't see them as they happened, but I saw them in magazines. And I remember being a kid flipping through some magazines and seeing the image. There's a famous shot in one of the matches, either the second or third match, where Billy Graham's got it's a bull rope match. He's got a rope wrapped around his neck, and Dusty's hanging him over the top rope, and he's kind of flailing there, and Dusty's busted open, and that's the first flashbulb memory in my mind. I was probably 4, and that was the first. So as I got older, that was the first match I wanted to see. I think they've since released it on some DVDs now, but I remember it took me years to finally see those matches, but that was my first ever memory. Dusty Rhodes and Billy Graham from WWF, Madison Square Garden.
So it's definitely 4 decades of pro wrestling fandom for you then.
I mean, I wish it would have been technically I could account 70s, but I really can't. I think it was more 1980 when I finally realized wrestling was a thing.
Fair enough.
So
was WrestleMania 3 the first WrestleMania you ever entered? Tell us about the experience.
Yeah, I wish if I had to do it all over again. One of my biggest problems in life is I never took enough pictures, and I didn't even take a camera. We just went to it like you would go to anything. We didn't even think about taking pictures. I was 10. I didn't know. To me, it didn't dawn on me, I might want to preserve this. We just went to the show. But that was my first WrestleMania, and that wasn't my first show. I had gone to one prior to that, but it was a live event. But it was my first real kind of show was in 87 there, and so I hadn't been at anything prior. And then I didn't go again for several years. I went to a show in 90 and 91, and then it wasn't until 96 that I got old enough to graduated high school, moved out, and I was already, kind of turned 21 around 96 and 97. So I was able to venture out on my own and go to shows. But really, I've been pretty hardcore ever since I was a kid. I had all the toys. I had everything. So
that's crazy, man.
I was a complete dork.
We're all the same. If we had this here, we would have become the same. I think the only other issue was we never really had the live wrestling here in Singapore. Yeah.
And I think for us, it's even harder to upkeep our fandom, knowing that we are on the other side of the world. But I think the fact that we are so passionate to the point that we did this podcast, I think it speaks a lot,
Yeah, I've mentioned that before on my shows about when people ask me, do you think WWE will ever have a WrestleMania overseas or something? And one thing I say, I'm they probably won't, but that certainly doesn't mean the fans don't deserve it because of exactly what you're talking about. All the sacrifices you have to make. I got it easy here. I just get to watch this at normal time. You have to watch it next day and, and find a right time and all the different times and everything you have to go through to watch it is harder.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm if you put a pay-per-view over there, it would be the best crowd. It would be Chicago times 10. It would be so, because everybody's just so amped. And you see that when they do Raws in London or somewhere that doesn't get it very often, that crowd is jacked and ready for action, So it would be the best crowd they'd ever see, if they were to do something more than just a live event over there. Because I know the fans are passionate.
Yeah. Speaking of your time during the Attitude Era where you're always going to shows, I just wanted to mention a couple of listener questions that they wanted to ask you. So this dude from Instagram Krona11 asked, what was your favorite WrestleMania match that you've watched live, and or your favorite wrestling memory or iconic moment that you saw live.
Okay, so and same thing with WrestleMania, right? The live, like being in the crowd, right? Not watching it. Well, I only went to 2. I was at 15 and I was at 3. 15 was terrible. So I'm gonna go Savage Steamboat. I saw Savage Steamboat live.
Wow.
You can't beat that one. I mean, that was
beat it.
there was nothing that much at 15 at all. And 3 was awesome, but that Savage and Steamboat match is revered as one of the best anyway. So that's the best one I've seen live. And then you said any other match in general that I've seen live?
Iconic moment, like a title change or like something that happened on Raw or during Attitude Era.
This Is Your Life. I was there for that. Mick Foley and The Rock.
Holy shit, yeah.
I was behind the announce table on the floor, so I was really close for that.
Wow.
That was a big one. Another really big, significant Raw for me was 2 weeks after the screw job in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I was in the 4th row ringside for that. That was the first week after Rude showed up on Nitro. Rick Rude did the double Nitro thing, or the Raw Nitro thing. So that was the first week's first live show after that. So they had to address that. The Outlaws beat LOD for the tag titles to win their first titles. That had the midget Bret Hart segment with DX.
Oh, yes. Wow,
and it was also the last night in the company for Crush, who I ran into that night with Vader at the Waffle House. And he was after the show, along with the Harris twins. They were all there sitting, and we were hearing Crush talk about, we didn't know. He was saying, when I get to Atlanta, we had no idea what he even meant. We had no idea that they did a segment where Kane beat him up and he was gone. That was his last segment on TV. He was mad about the screw job. He was going to WCW. And it was also the last night in the company for Jim Neidhart, who joined DX and then got ousted at the very end of the show. So that was just a big, significant Raw because it was so fresh after the screw job. A lot of guys were still mad about the screw job. 2 of them left that night. Outlaws won their first title and become, one of the most iconic. So that would be on the list as well, that Raw. I saw Austin win the title twice at WrestleMania 15 and the night after King of the Ring in 99. I was at that Raw, so that was a big one. But moments, I'd probably go This Is Your Life, Austin winning his 2 titles that I saw live, that Fayetteville Raw with the midget Brett. And I've seen a lot more, man. I watched Jericho and Benoit trade the Intercontinental title. I was at SummerSlam in 2000 for the TLC match. I saw the Kennel from Hell match.
Gosh.
I was there, Unforgiven.
We're sorry.
In 99 alone, I went to 3 pay-per-views. I was at WrestleMania, King of the Ring, and Unforgiven. And ironically, I don't know how far back your memory goes. The Kennel from Hell match, I'm pretty sure, is the very last appearance of the Blue Bar Cage. Don't think they did it again. Because the last one I remember the St. Valentine's Massacre match with Vince. That cage, that was the same cage, but they painted it black. And then later on in the year, they had the blue one inside that cell. I think that's the last time that's ever been used.
Right.
It was at that pay-per-view. So I kind of remember it for that. I was at Survivor Series 01 with the Invasion ending. That was kind of big.
No, the match itself, you managed to watch the 5-1-5.
Yeah, that one. Right? I'm all over that pay-per-view because the hard cam's right on me. You can see me through the whole thing with my friends. So I was really close for that. And I was at Survivor Series in 2018 here in LA a couple years ago for Brock and Daniel Bryan and something else. So off the top of my head, those are a few, but I've got more. Those are probably the most significant memories that I have.
I think that is worth like a lifetime of fan memories.
Yeah,
I feel like I should be at more. I went on a 13-year live event drought. My last show was 05, and then I didn't go again until 2018. That was my next show in between. So I did go on a long span there. Where now I'm trying to get back into it.
Right.
If you guys want to come to LA next year, WrestleMania, I'll be there.
If it happens,
man, like we talk to each other about it. Like we have to go to one WrestleMania at least once in our lives. Buy the plane tickets, go there. Like I guess the pinnacle of my live experience has been SmackDown when I was in the UK. They did the O2 Arena. And I actually really didn't enjoy it because there was a lot of standing around. When they go into commercial breaks, there's just sort of just standing there, staring at each other.
What year was that?
Last year. It's last year.
Last year. Okay, yeah.
It was right before pay-per-view.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't remember.
It is different now how the TV is set up. There probably is a lot more standing around. Where back in the day, remember the My Sacrifice videos they used to play, the Creed? the Kid Rock one. Oh. They would play the crap out of that on the screen for the fans, like when they're filing in, and they would do things to entertain you. They'd shoot off T-shirts, they'd run things on or whatever. Now it doesn't feel like it's much like that. You are kind of standing around a lot. So
I wonder why that is.
I definitely see the changes.
Yeah, it feels like the fans have to start entertaining themselves. So we just randomly start chants like Adam Cole, baby, and whatnot,
That everybody still's wooing, and every show I've ever been to, the woos are going crazy. So those are still around too. So.
Yeah, you brought up a great point, especially about the fact that when you had that drought 13 years, I think that's where like the product kind of got really watered down, and where a lot of fans kind of tune off from the product. I dare say me and Young are probably one of the leftovers from the Attitude Era and like never grew out of wrestling. Most of the people about our age, they're not wrestling fans. They don't follow the product. So for you personally, like what do you think can make the product go back, to some sort of mainstream consciousness and popularity again?
I'm not quite sure what exactly specifically. All you got to do is just make the fans want to go. Like, that looks like so much fun. I want to go kind of thing. And you don't see, you really don't see it right now with the empty arena stuff. But even prior to that, it was hard to because I live in San Diego. I live in a big city. They're always here. They do Raws and Smackdowns here a couple times a year. And I never went. 20-minute drive. Huh. And I didn't go. So it was my big drought was also kind of the same thing. It was just because I'd rather watch it on TV. Right. I had seen, to me, I'm never going to see better than what I've already seen kind of thing. So I didn't really have that bug to like go or whatever, unless it was a big show, unless a pay-per-view comes here. And that's when I'm like, I need to start going to pay-per-views. LA's right up the road. There's so many opportunities here. And then started getting into it. Now I've been to a couple takeovers and stuff, but back in those days, I just didn't want to because of what you said. Like there's nothing there that really make you even want to go in a weird way. But I don't know what they can really necessarily do. Part of the wrestling's problem, I think, is a combination of stuff as mistakes WWE and wrestling companies are making and Vince are making, but also that we've literally seen everything. There's nothing fresh and new to give us because every time the fans have been really the packing in, you get sellouts was when you were getting new stuff. Attitude Era was new. Hogan, we went from Hogan to Austin drinking beer and flipping middle fingers. And it was a completely different, we never seen anything like that. And it was interesting. And people wanted to see these new characters that were now talking smack and a lot more sex appeal and all that stuff that we hadn't seen. But now it's like, you can't even bring back the Attitude Era ideas. It won't work now because it's been done. You can have, it doesn't matter. You can have a bikini pillow fight. It's not going to matter. It doesn't matter. Like nobody's going to be selling out for that. And I think just wrestling in general is like burnt itself out to where they're left with the hardcores. We're not going anywhere. We still love it. But that idea of, man, Raw's off the hook. Where you have Raw parties. I used to have Raw parties. Have friends over. Pay-per-view parties. And I don't want anybody over here for Raw. Now. It's like now I'm just doing the live stream for the YouTube, and that's better. But you don't have that feeling of. It didn't give you the same feeling as it used to, basically. But I don't know what they can do. You guys' guess is as good as mine as far as being able to draw the interest back to where fans are like, man, I don't care what it costs. I got to go see that in person kind of thing. And, you don't get those shows very often. Sometimes pay-per-views and things like that will really capture you. But overall, I don't know. I think wrestling, it's out. It's not in anymore, So
it's like a niche now.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just kind of left with us. So I don't know. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions you can ask. What's it going to take to get the excitement now where it used to be? And I don't think that thing exists. Cynical as it sounds. And I want it to.
Is it a matter of finding that one person to, cross genres? He's a wrestling guy or gal, but, he's also doing movies. He's doing other things. Could it be someone like that?
It might be. WWE's always, they've always tried to bring in, the outside people and, like Mike Tyson and things like that to, bring outside eyeballs in. I'm not even sure if that's necessarily, it might have to go back to that Austin or Rock thing. Like I said, WWE will never do that again, but it might happen by accident to where fans are like actually behind somebody. We want to go to see this one person. But even if an Austin bubbled up today, they'd ruin him. They wouldn't let Austin 316 get over. He'd be in catering that, if he wasn't in their plans to get over, they wouldn't care. We're not giving you a shirt. We didn't mean for the crowd to like your interview, kind of thing. So even now I feel like if that person comes around, their growth will be stunted anyway. Just by the system, by the way the system is. So I just, it's a little frightening that's kind of where we're at, but I wish it wasn't like that. I just don't know.
But looking forward to the future, personally for you, any current wrestlers whose work you enjoy? I mean, you might not be your favorite, but you do enjoy. And this is a two-parter. In the next decade, in the 2020s, who do you see will be like the main star from WWE, AEW going forward?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Right now, I'm a fan of. There's very few guys I don't like. I'm not that type of fan where I'm like, get him off my TV. I hate those people. You're never going to hear that from me. I don't like. I respect everybody's like kind of ability, but there's definitely some I like more than others. But as like far as the future, I mean, it's early, but I mentioned this in my last couple of podcasts that the only guy in recent memory that's given me that Brock Lesnar 0-2 feel is Karrion Kross. And if they don't pump the brakes on him, because they've, he put down Ciampa so hard, he's automatically challenging Adam Cole. It looks like they're not going to waste any time for him. And it feels like kind of like what they did with Brock. He came right in and boom, he was champ just like that. And they're not going to let this one slip through their fingers kind of thing. So maybe, even though we're 2 weeks in, maybe Karrion Kross can bring that much interest and credibility to where you can find that new Brock attraction. And he's got a ways to go. He's got to get through NXT and everything first. But so far, I'm really optimistic about him, although I'm also pretty confident that WWE will screw that up. But if they don't, I think he's got a lot of promise. But guys like, Kevin Owens, I love McIntyre. I hope this all works out for him, because he's great. I would like to say, the future would be somebody like him. And then if you want to go younger, God, there's so many guys that you could easily be main event or catering. And that's so crazy. Yeah. You should never think, because it could literally go either way from them. It just kind of depends on WWE. But I also think a lot of guys need more room to grow. You might not know how good someone is on the mic until you give them some time. And that's just something you don't see as much anymore either. So I'm just trying to think of the current crop. I feel like everybody's kind of on that same level. They're all capable of being the face, but are any of them really going to is Drew even going to get a chance? I mean, I know he's the champion right now, but are things going to work out for him, or is he just going to drop that belt and be forgotten about in a year? I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for that.
I mean, for me personally, in my opinion, I'm really looking at Velveteen Dream. For his age, for how young he is and how big he is in the business, and the fact that his character is, he's really have that character with him. I think he can go a long way.
That I believe you too, and I think I'm hoping they just move him up now. There's no reason for him to stick around. Bring him to Raw and just let him go, because he is that character that can do some pretty entertaining things. And you're right, he's so young, and if he can keep himself healthy, he's got 20 years ahead of him. So who knows? The sky's the limit for him. So. I'm all in on him.
It seems like he's been in NXT forever already, and after that definitive loss to Adam Cole
that was it.
Over. I think it's time to move him to Raw SmackDown.
I think I'm thinking, not that it really matters, but I feel like Raw would be more his speed. I feel like Riddle was great on SmackDown. That was the right move. I feel like Raw would have been, but for some reason, Raw feels more of a Velveteen Dream character type of show, like a place where you'd have him. Just doing something weird or whatever. So 3-hour show. And
it's really funny you mentioned that as well, because initially when SmackDown was to move to Fox, the impression that most of us were thinking that is like Raw is going to be the sports entertainment side, and SmackDown is going to be like the very sports-based presentation kind of deal. And we thought all like the so-called MMA-based guys like Brock Lesnar were going to go SmackDown, and, all the character like The Fiend was going to stay on Raw, but it's kind of all over the place now.
I know. They don't know what's going on over there, I don't think. But that's the way I would want to do it if I was them. I would want my more sports-based matches to go on Fox for that big audience, because, you got to people just tuning in who might not be a wrestling fan. Look here, wrestling's on, and maybe it'll capture their attention. But if they're doing something silly, like if the Street Profits and Viking Raiders are axe throwing, who's going to watch that? I wish they would have stuck with that idea, but doesn't look like they know what's going on over there.
We have to ask you, what did you think of that match? That match at the pay-per-view at Backlash.
The Profits.
Profits, Viking Raiders. That
was a bit much. I part of me thought that the cinematic stuff might have jumped the shark with them. Yeah, it was just maybe a little bit. I didn't like totally hate it or anything, but I was literally like, what am I watching and what am I doing with my life?
Exactly.
like I need to completely reevaluate every decision I've made because this is crazy. But I can find the entertainment in that stuff for sure. And there was parts of it that did have me laughing a little bit, but I'm like, okay, this is getting a little too overboard. And maybe I wouldn't care if they were just having fun, but one of these teams is the champion. Yeah. And then the next night on Raw, you saw them doing the thing, and then Big Show was back there, and they're trying to decide how to do the tiebreaker. And it took Big Show to come up and say, you're the champions. How about put your belts on the line in a wrestling match in the ring? There's your tiebreaker, which is where it was going to lead anyway. But the fact that these 4 guys needed that pointed out to them, that's where I think it's like crossing the boundary of getting just a little bit silly or stupid or whatever, where, you know, the Funhouse match I thought was fun, you know, and then like all that. But this one, you know, like I said, I didn't hate it to the degree that maybe some did, but I definitely felt like, okay, maybe we should not go too overboard with these type of matches because sometimes they're just straight stupid. And you're just like, what did I even watch kind of thing.
I know, Foreign, you didn't quite like that match. I think I'm the same as Greg in that, you know, as I was watching, I was like, what the hell am I watching? But I couldn't take my eyes off of it. It was like a bad car crash. You're like, what's going on? And they're ninjas
and all that. Yeah.
An alligator at the end. Like, what?
Yeah. Like, what are they smoking when they're writing this? And can I have some? I'm like, man.
Yeah. But I guess, you know, if anything, they put it there to be the comic relief, sort of the let up match before the big cinematic match between.
Because you had 2 big
Orton.
ones in between. Yeah. Or on each end. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I gotta laugh, you know, at the way WWE like looks at stuff and markets stuff. Especially when they said the greatest wrestling match ever. And I think inadvertently it was like a pure stroke of genius because I think it made more eyes want to watch Backlash just for the curiosity, you know, to see whether they can live up to it. Somehow they struck gold unintentionally. Yeah,
they were being unrelentingly annoying with the hammering down of the tagline. I'm like, God, can you give it a rest? We get it. Like, what the hell? So, but then the fact that then once you saw it, because I kind of thought it was a rib, and I'm like, okay, if you just look at it as they're just screwing, they're messing with them, and they're entertaining themselves internally, I actually can respect that. I'm like, yeah, just rib the hell out of these guys. Vince likes to rib, even in his old age and his out of touch stuff. He still can have a fun loving side to him. So I can see them doing that just to amuse themselves. But then when I saw the direction they went and they kind of really turned it into like a love letter to wrestling. I mean, they tributed a lot, you know, with the Eddie stuff and the Rock stuff and Stone Cold and, you know, just the long drawn out match that went maybe an hour or something like that. And really kind of, it was kind of like a demonstration or an exhibition of what pro wrestling is and the ride you can be taken on in a match. And it just turned out to be 100 times better than I thought based on the tagline and everything. And the fact that they edited that, you know, helped it. You know, if that would have been an unedited match, I don't know. Yeah. It was the way it was all kind of put together. I cannot believe they survived that and came out on the other side okay after having a match like that. That could have been embarrassing. But turned out to be maybe not the greatest match ever, but not bad. They didn't shit the bed, you know, when I thought they would.
Did the crowd noise, or they piped in the crowd noise, right? The audience cheers and everything. Did that bug you? Because I don't know.
No, it would have if it was a live match.
Okay.
I think with this, they wanted it to be known that it was piped in. It wasn't like they weren't trying to pretend that it was real. They were doing this on purpose and letting it be known. Even like maybe the "This is awesome" chants might have been a little bit one step too far. I didn't mind them. Now, if they try to pull this on a live match and try to have their finger on the button of when to cheer, when to boo, then no. But in an edited thing, I thought it worked, and it just added more to that. They created their own live wrestling audience environment, but you can only achieve that, I think, in a taped scenario where you can edit it and put it together and put it all. But if you're trying to do that on the fly, then I'd say no way. So only for the purposes of this match, I was okay with the piped in noise. But that's not something I want to see all the time.
No. And it would have only worked if there were like where we are right now, where they do have some crowd, like the Performance Center guys. Because if they did this at WrestleMania, I think it would have been horrible with no crowd, and you know there's crowd noise. It would have really taken you out of it.
Yeah, you got the feedback in the background from them, which definitely helped. So now looking back at WrestleMania, how crazy that was, just having dead silence like that. I wish they would have thrown up that plexiglass and thrown 30 people around the ringside then. Might have helped a little bit, you know, but
it made so much difference. It
would have.
for me personally, Young knows this. I'm actually a huge Randy Orton fan. He's my favorite current wrestler, and so with everything that he's been doing currently with his age stuff, and like he's so in tune in his character work right now. Do you think this is like 2020 has been like a career rejuvenation for Randy Orton?
I hope so, because I've always liked Ray. I've always had Orton's back. I've always liked him. I've always thought he was money. I thought he was a great-looking kid right from – and I watched Ace. I watched his dad as a kid, and so when he came in, I automatically kind of had, like, a loyalty to him because I just loved Bob Orton as when I was growing up and stuff. And then when you watch him work, I'm like, holy crap, he's athletic. He looks good. I thought he was going to be Cena. Yeah. I thought because he resembled more of The Rock to me. Like, he just had the more tanned skin, and he just had a better, like, kind of pretty boy look to him or something, where Cena was just a little bit different, but it turned out to be reversed. Cena was the next Rock and not actually neither one of them were the next Rock, but that's who WWE meant. It felt like Randy Orton was going to be the guy that was going to get everything. And then it kind of turned to be Cena, probably because of a lot of Orton's, younger life, personal problems, couple of suspensions, where Cena, I don't even think he's gotten a parking ticket. So, they kind of went with him. But Orton, I've always been a huge fan of, and I've always had his back because he's one of those wrestlers, too, that when he was on top a lot, he was getting a lot of crap and criticism. Oh, Randy Orton always wins. And, Randy Orton, again, they're always going back to Randy Orton. I'm like, because he's good. Like, I don't see, like, what's wrong with building a guy's legacy? This is a third-generation wrestler that's good in the ring. Maybe he's not, he's not The Rock on promos, but does he really need to be? He's Randy Orton. He's good. He's proved himself. He's worked with all the big names, Taker, Triple H, Mick Foley. Everybody says working with Randy Orton's great. So who are the fans to say any different, kind of thing? So I've always had his back. And I think any issue with the fans had with him was probably just on WWE's pushing of him and that sort of thing, because they get upset about that. But he just didn't have it to the extent Cena did. But I have no issues with Randy Orton, and I hope that this is a rejuvenation for him. I'm worried now. Have you heard any of this Randy Orton and Charlotte stuff for SummerSlam?
No.
In Charlotte,
Raw. Charlotte and Flair had that thing backstage, and then Flair came out and low blowed Christian, and kind of helped with Randy Orton. And now there's kind of some rumbling because they've been talking about putting Charlotte in a men's match. Tessa's done it over on him. Yeah. And so if Orton's not working with McIntyre for the title, who's he going to work with? And who's Charlotte going to work with if Asuka is busy with Shayna Baszler or something like that? And I'm like, I wonder if they're – and plus Flair interacted with both of them on Raw. So are they lining those two up for Charlotte and Randy Orton at SummerSlam?
Wow.
That is so random.
That would be huge, though.
I mean, I don't know. I was trying to figure out would I like that or would I like not like that. I mean, I think I would like it just to see it, but is it really going to be competitive? I mean, is Randy Orton going to give this girl a 20-minute match? I mean, what's going to happen? So I think it's just like rumblings now, but like somebody pointed out to me, like, yeah, Flair was kind of doing things with both. Like some other fans saw the seeds planted more than I did. They had to point it out to me. I think they pointed it out to me in the stream on Monday night. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. By the time you guys post this podcast, maybe we'll have more info on that.
More news on it. Are you surprised by Randy Orton's longevity? He kind of outlasted John Cena, and he's been here since 2002. Basically, everyone from his class he outlasted. Yeah. And I didn't expect Randy Orton to be the one that's like loyal to WWE.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a combination of a few things. As much as I love Randy Orton, I don't think he would have had the film career that a John Cena. Because John Cena's killing it. He is funny. Yep. Every time I've seen him in something, I'm like, man, he's doing well. He doesn't even suck. Yeah. So I feel like Randy Orton wouldn't have had that. But also Randy Orton's had a lot of like ups and downs. I remember when he was on the shit list in WWE. He had to do a couple of jobs. I remember one night on Raw, Wade Barrett just beat him 20 minutes into the show on a random cold match, hit him with a forearm, pinned him 1, 2, 3 in the middle like it was nothing. Probably because he was being punished for, any sort of recent drug thing or whatever he had. So the fact that he's just there now, I think he'd be gone if he had outside stuff. And I think Cena would be there if he wasn't doing movies and stuff. I think it's just the way it worked out. But plus, Randy Orton kind of had his, his peaks and valleys with the company, and he was on top at some times and he was not another. And I just kind of think I don't know what the reasoning is for him being there and staying there all this time, especially he's like one wellness policy violation from termination.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I even think he worked one off. I think he actually should have already been. So maybe it's a combination of all that. He's just always there. He's going to get paid. They're going to pay him huge. So if he has nothing else to go do and he's still in shape enough to wrestle and wrestle at a high level, he's probably going to do that. He'll be, idolized or immortalized in WWE forever. But would be cool. Like he's one guy that I think could drastically help in AEW. If his contract was up and he was disgruntled, I don't think he's a 15-time world champion. He's not being treated badly there at all. But if he ever did get upset, like he's a guy that could go over there and put 5 solid years in. And boy, you got 15 years of Randy Orton with all that live TV experience and pay-per-view experience coming in to Dynamite now to teach Jimmy Havoc what the hell to do when he's out there. Kind of thing would be huge for them, but I don't think it's probably a combination. WWE's treated him well, and he's got no reason to leave. Kind of thing. It's probably business mostly, Plus he's on good terms with Vince and everybody, I'm sure. So he doesn't have the problem. He doesn't have to worry about being the guy that's not being used right, because he's always being used right. He's Randy Orton, even when he's losing. Even when Brock, I remember that SummerSlam match. I was so surprised. Brock just elbowed him 5 times in the head, busted him open. The match was over. Like, what are they doing? I was like, but didn't seem to bother Randy at all. He just kept on trucking, and he's still Randy's Randy. So I'm glad he stuck around all this time.
Right. What about over on AEW side? Who catches your eye? Who's going to be a star in the future, you reckon?
I'm trying to think of a non-WWE guy over there. Obviously MJF. I think will be some sort of just sleazy heel. I don't think he'll ever be The Rock or Stone Cold. I mean, he'll probably even be world champion one day, but he'll be the cowardly world champion and the arrogant one. Man, why can't I think right now? Sorry, I've been at work for 10 hours.
No worries.
What about Sammy Guevara?
Oh, I should have mentioned him. Sammy Guevara, I love.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like him and he's too small or whatever. He's great. Yeah. He is fantastic. And he was one of the nicest guys on that cruise. So approachable, so cool. Talk to everybody. Just seemed like he's a young kid who hasn't been jaded by the business yet.
Right.
And, so he's open to talk to everybody. He has a good time and he's super, like, he's anything but what he is on TV, that cocky gum chewing type of kid, hung up on himself, selfies and all that. He's just humble. He's nice. He doesn't have an attitude and he'll shake your hand and, and all that. And, thanks for coming out. He seems like he's somebody again that like, it's all about like the vibe I get from people and, do I trust them to work in this business and do it right and not embarrass themselves and don't become another black eye for us. And I feel like he'll be fine. Like he's just, he's too good. He's well liked and he's super duper athletic and he'll only get better. What is he? 15? So
he does look 15.
Just about. Yeah.
So when he ages and grows, he's only going to, So I'm Sammy Guevara, and plus he's got the, the rub with Jericho, and all that's another thing. And so he's another guy that Jericho, I think, has really helped. I just, even that hug that they shared that one night on Dynamite that became the cutout, like something as small as that is going to go miles for Sammy Guevara, and his career. And he'll always going to be remembered for that and Les Sex Gods and all that. And I think that's one thing that an influence like Jericho can really have and can help guys like Sammy. So yeah, Sammy is on my list. Maybe even more so. Who's the other young guy I'm trying to think of that's Sammy-like? No, I can't think of him.
Sammy.
Keep Sabian?
Maybe Sabian. God, there's somebody else though. What's wrong with me? I can't think. Sabian I like too. Jungle Boy's another one. I feel like they will eventually can get some marketing behind him.
Right.
Jungle Boy just based on his past and everything. But I think Sammy Guevara is like a better wrestler still than Jungle. Aside from that, I'm hoping there's a lot of guys kind of undiscovered still, that haven't really gotten, that we might have seen wrestle or whatever, but haven't really broke out and become big. Hopefully Cody doing these matches every week can help. We saw Ricky Starks tonight on Dynamite, who's beloved by people. Everybody was super happy that he got an opportunity. So, maybe somebody can come out of that. But there's they need to break out somebody. They need a breakout star. I'm surprised Omega wasn't at the top the minute he got there. So I feel like somebody like him will get back to the mountaintop, probably Paige too. But I'm trying to think of that, like that young guy that we just see and like Sammy.
You're right about
Darby. That's what I'm thinking of.
Darby Allin.
Darby, yeah, that's what I'm trying. Yeah, he's another guy that I think he's another guy that has a lot of outside interest. He might not have his heart in wrestling forever, but he's like Jeff Hardy and Sting, kind of. Kind combo or something like that. And I think he's different. Fans like him. He's skateboarding and he's reckless.
Yeah.
So, guys like that are going to be the future.
And a cool thing about when you say he has outside interest, I didn't know he's like on cool talking terms with Tony Hawk, which is like makes him damn cool in my eyes.
I just met Tony Hawk a week ago, and then he was on Dynamite with Darby or on the pay-per-view. I forgot where he was, but yeah, it was the fact that he's doing that stuff is pretty cool. Yeah, Tony came into my restaurant last Wednesday.
Wow.
Or 2 days before, like last Monday, something like that. I forgot what day it was. Probably been about 10 days ago now.
And he stays around your area?
Yeah, he lives in San Diego.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yes, and he's been in before, but that week was the first time I'd ever really gotten to talk to him and shake his hand and how's it going and blah, blah, blah. But I had no idea he was on Dynamite. Had I known that had I known he had filmed that, I would have brought it up.
Right.
Dude, I got a podcast. I love those guys, and I'm a big wrestling fan or whatever. Here, check it out. Plug it on your show or whatever. But I didn't mention anything about that. I'm like, what does this guy know about wrestling? And then literally 2 days later, he's on Dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in that segment with Darby.
But I think that's like when you're talking about how to get outside interest into wrestling is all these wrestlers doing other things. Like if a wrestler like Xavier Woods being so big on the gaming and doing that on his YouTube channel, and like having this outside interest kind of inevitably gets them to know about the wrestling business because part of it.
Where they might tune in. If somebody doesn't like wrestling but they like video games and they stumble across Xavier Woods on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, and then they start watching him and following him, and they're like, I really like this guy, like I want to see, he's a wrestler. I'm going to watch, I'm going to watch Raw this week when he's not hurt or whatever. So little things like that I think can help. And especially with the video games, because there's so much crossover, the video game fans and wrestling fans. Little things like that.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool as well because, other than doing podcasting, because I do make music as well, and I'm a huge fan of rap and hip hop. And rap and hip hop, the artists are all big on wrestling. They always mention Ric Flair every single 2-3 times.
You're right. Yeah, I think and athletes are the same way too. I feel like they channel some of the attitude of the wrestlers and the promos and the excitement, and the energy of them and stuff. And here in the States, you'll see football teams coming out to WWE wrestler theme music, or something. They'll give a title belt to when they win the championship and stuff. So like a lot of people are aware of wrestling and what it's like and how wrestlers act and behave and, kind of the demeanor and stuff. But, any of those things like help, but I still feel like WWE's everywhere. They still find themselves somewhere.
Well, they're definitely branching out as far as like the media and the content that they can put out just to catch eyeballs of the casuals. I mean, we were talking about this recently, the Undertaker documentary, right, on the WWE Network. And we were talking about how they should just release that to Netflix. Because the buzz from The Last Dance. Have you watched that?
No.
The one about Michael Jordan.
Flair, right? Ric Flair?
No, it's a documentary about Michael Jordan. And his time with Chicago Bulls.
That one. No, I watched all those.
Okay, yeah. Like that got me hooked on the basketball again. And I haven't watched basketball in like 15 years.
Oh wow.
Right? Yeah. So I'm thinking if they put that Undertaker documentary on Netflix, you'll get all these casual fans who might just stumble upon it. People who love to watch documentaries, and they might go, "Hey, what is this? This is wrestling stuff." I remember the Undertaker from way back when.
I was just about to say that because people would remember him probably too, even if you weren't a wrestling fan. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that guy" or whatever. He was like, I'm in my 40s. I was 13 when he debuted. I was a child,
right?
Void of one pube. And here I am, I'm a grown ass man staring down the barrel of retirement, and he's still here. So you're gonna find people. If you put something like you said on Netflix or something like that, you would probably definitely find somebody that would let's check that out. And I mean, I swear, and that was so riveting. 5-10 minutes into that part one, you're gonna stick around. Because I mean, it starts pretty hard, and and like, oh wow, I want to see this story or whatever. So that's a great idea. They should at least. I mean, there's talk about them, farming out their content to another, provider anyway. But if they just did something like one thing like that, it's on the network, but let's throw it up on Netflix and see, what kind of other eyeballs we can get on it. Might get them at least able to tune into Undertaker's Hall of Fame or, or whatever whenever he goes away.
Do you watch any of the Total Divas?
I can't. I won't. And they all live here too. The Bellas and area in San Diego and stuff. Right. I've seen Nikki a few times. She's been in my restaurant twice.
Oh.
But I can't watch those things. I hate reality shows. I've always have. So even with Daniel Bryan on it, he's not even enough to make me watch it. Because the minute I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so mad at you for what you say. Like, I can't even, I just can't even. I'm like, what is this?
It is a guilty pleasure of mine. Not so much the Bellas. I don't know. I enjoy the Total Divas a little bit more. The latest season with Ronda Rousey, with Carmella, with a whole bunch of them, Nia Jax and everything.
I should watch it. Yeah, especially with like people like them on there. It might help me get to know them a little bit more too. But sometimes I'm so turned off by reality shows in general, But
don't worry, Greg. Don't worry, Greg. Every single episode where me and Young, we always banter. I hate reality TV shows, so I give him a lot of shit because it's very unbecoming of me to check out all these shows.
Well, if I watched it, I'd probably just rag on it the whole time, just laughing at it. Like, this is ridiculous or whatever. So that could be fun too,
Yeah. Well, the whole point is it caters to a totally different audience. It's not for us, right? But it's bringing those people, even if 10%, 1% of the people who watch these trashy reality shows, they're like, okay, you know what? This wrestling stuff seems interesting. I'll watch an episode of Raw, Smackdown, just because, Ronda said this or Carmella did this. That helps the business.
I think it does. And the ratings are good because they keep renewing it and they keep bringing it back. So people are watching that show. So, and they're probably using it as a way to get people to watch WWE as well. So I can totally see that happening in that, because that's a good example of a show that probably does bring a few outside eyeballs. Because people watch any show like that where there's like drama and people and women. It doesn't really matter what their job is. If they, if they're in rock and roll or the basketball ones or whatever they've done.
Or they do nothing.
People want to see train wrecks.
So there's this one little known fact that I found out recently. Actually, Brandy Rhodes was a cast member in this reality TV show called Wax of Atlanta, and they featured I think basically they are the wives and girlfriends of all these different athletes, right? So we had
Cody was on the show.
Cody was featured. So this was during his run, I think, when he was in TNA, ROH. And Deontay Wilder's wife was a cast at that particular season as well. So it was pretty interesting. So like they had, like, for example, a pro wrestler wife, they had a boxing wife, they had a football wife. So it was and I got that fact from a friend of mine who completely doesn't know anything about wrestling. but she said, hey, I like this black girl, she's pretty hot, and the husband is some sort of wrestler, you know this girl? I'm like, what?
I wasn't even aware of that. I wasn't even aware that was a thing. Weird. I have to look that up.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. I got one more question from one of our listeners, and it's actually in line with what we're discussing right now. From Irvinirkia. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. From Instagram, he mentioned, should WWE have gone public? Did the quality compromised because of them going public?
Yes, it was drastically. If I had one thing to change, it would be they would never do that. But that's not an option. They, I'm surprised they did it as early as they did, because I felt like they were just off the heels of the Monday Night War. They barely survived that, and they were going public. I almost thought like I could envision that something more like in 2010, not 2001 or whenever it was that it was official. But yeah, I think that was a really big problem because things changed. They couldn't do what they wanted anymore. I would do anything to go back to the days where it was Vince and Bruce Pritchard and Pat Patterson writing TV in Vince's pool at his house, and just, where you just felt like things were more, they had it together more. Now it's, you got 35 writers and none of them can come up with anything better than impromptu tag match. Like it's the same, like it takes 30 people to come up with this, like I could do that for free. So instead of paying all these salaries or whatever. So that, I think they started having to care about their image a lot more, because they didn't seem to give two F's about their image prior to that. They didn't care what they got Triple H climbing in a casket and raping a corpse. Like, they don't care. They don't care. Yeah. They don't care. So like that all was going to start. And heck, even back then they were publicly traded by the time the Katie Vick stuff happened. But it started becoming a bigger deal when, the deaths started racking up and wrestling started getting, really bad reputation. And now it's a publicly traded company, stocks and all this. And I think that was a big part of it. And then, I think the Benoit murders was the icing on the cake of saying, we got to change everything now. We're going to turn into Tickle Me Elmo every day. And, no more with the blood and no more with the, the violence and the cursing and the sex and all that. So it was kind of a combination, I think, of both. But going public definitely hurt, I think, because it seemed like their priorities changed. It was about keeping the shareholders happy before the fans. And that's it. I just wish that never would have happened, because it's just changed so much stuff, and it's changed now it's even worse now. Now you got, these quarterly conference calls where you have to hear all these like minute details about every little thing, and how everything counts and everything matters, and it's about that bottom line, that end profit. And that's their number one thing. Keep the profits coming, keep this company profitable, keep everybody happy, and then we'll worry about the product on screen later, when it should be reversed. Like it should be like, do whatever you got to do to keep the ratings up and the fans in the building, not worry about signing Saudi Arabia deals and, $1 billion deals or whatever. See, I think that was a big problem for wrestling to go public.
But that's why I'm pretty curious. Like we all can agree, like generally the in-ring product, the entertainment of it is, and the ratings are not as high as it was. But how did, even with the current quality of the product, they are still able to convince Fox to, do a multi-billion-dollar deal, to sell their content?
I know. And I wouldn't even be surprised. It might have even, I don't know the details on the deal, but I'm not even sure if Fox didn't approach them. Because they're still WWE. Like, even though we wrestling fans, we see all the problems, but they still see a product that brings in ratings and they can sell advertising and all that, because WWE is still WWE. They've really done a good job of expanding their brand globally. I can't tell you how long it took me to get used to saying WWE when they changed from WWF.
Right.
But now it's almost like second. Now I don't even think about WWF anymore. Again, they were able to do that. They were able to make that transition to where people were used to saying WWF. And then when just a couple of years, they've got that brand, that logo, that name smeared and tattooed on everybody's brain, even people who aren't wrestling fans. So they've done a really good job, like from a marketing standpoint, getting their name out there, becoming global, touring, and having different avenues for revenue and movies and stuff like that. So even though I think the fans suffer the worst, the WWE brand still brings in enough that it's attractive to TV stations, because they weren't getting deals like this in the Attitude Era, not even close. And back in the day, I think they were paying, it was the other way. They were paying them to supply the content, where now it's like, oh, here's $1 billion and you can play SmackDown on our network TV show that, will give you more eyeballs than anything you've ever done before. So I think it's just, even though WWE has its problems, they're still WWE, and they're still going to attract a certain type of advertisers, which attracts networks.
I think at that point as well, Fox and the UFC, their deal ran out, right? So they needed that content. They needed that, and there's a huge crossover between MMA fans and pro wrestling fans as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. So that helped. So maybe it might have been a little bit easier. Oh, you still got something, and plus they do the football and everything too on Fox. So, that's it's a big deal for them. It's not going to be there. It's still going to be, NFL is going to be their, their baby, but I think WWE is just still going to that's what it's all about, selling advertising. They're still going to be able to do that. So regardless of the problems that the fans see that advertisers really don't care about, they just care about, the bottom line and the content, I guess. So
we have one very sidetrack question, different from whatever we've been talking about. So some of the fans actually been curious to know about, because we mentioned when we were introducing you to our audience that you were a tape trader back in the day. Was there a period where you were super into this trading of tapes, and do you operate some of like the dial-in phone calls, talking about all the rumors as well?
I did. I did that too. I did the hotline. So I did a kind of that was all in the 90s. And I started getting into tape trading by looking in the backs of magazines and seeing like phone numbers. Hey, I can give you 5 tapes full of 4 hours each of All Japan death matches or something like that. And the $20 a tape, and you'd mail away a check and then wait 6.5 months for it to show up. And it did, or not, maybe not that long, but it was just a long process, and you had to trust it. You're mailing away money, it's not like going online or whatever. So that was the only way. There was no internet. Had I known then what I know now, and just years later, there'd be an internet where I can find anything I want, I might not have tried so hard. But I wanted to get as much wrestling footage and learn as much about other areas of the world, Mexico, Japan, Stampede Wrestling, anywhere I could, just to see something else. And so that's kind of what, plus I was just considered myself a huge wrestling fan. And when tape trading started, I hadn't ruled out going to wrestling school yet. I thought maybe I would, kind of thing. So I wanted to know and see and know what to expect, all the plays. I was trying to do my homework, basically.
Right.
But then I also wanted to watch all the stuff too. So that was just doing stuff in the magazines. And then I would get contacts from there, and it would snowball, and I would find somebody else, and I can put you in touch with him who's got all this stuff. And then the trading started happening. So I had to purchase for a while. But then once you start making contacts, you can be pen pals. Hey, by the way, I've got all these tapes. How about I send you all these and you send me all of these? And that's where the name tape trading came from. You actually would trade instead of like purchasing stuff. So that was all probably up until 99. And then I did like a hotline. It was like an early version of the podcast. And it would be, I would call, they had 900 numbers, WWE and WCW, but there was also a bunch based out of New York, and they were just free numbers. They were just a regular telephone number. It would be a voicemail company, and somebody, whoever the host was, would have 15 minutes to say their piece, and then you could listen to it. And they would talk about the results of a show, talk about wrestling rumors, news, and there was even a way for it to beep and for you to leave a message and say, here's what I think. And then they ask a question, and then they would get back to you on the next hotline report. Hey, we had a question from Greg from so-and-so. He asked this. And that was like a super early version of podcasting. And as I started calling these and leaving messages, several different hosts, one of them is still around, Don Tony. I don't know if you know who he is. He's another podcaster, different tone, a little different tone than me, but good dude. He's out in New York, and he's still at it or whatever, but he had one of those hotlines. So him and a few other people, I would leave messages as just a regular fan, but I'm guessing they got a lot of really stupid messages because they always liked my messages and they always responded to them. And then I got invites to be guests. Hey, we should have this guy on. He's left a lot of really smart messages. Let's have him on. And that morphed into, do you want to have your own line? And then one of the hotlines that I was calling, he wanted to stop doing it. And he's like, I got this. He goes, I got this for 9 more months, this voicemail service. Do you want it? Do you want to take it over? And I did. And so I would, watch Raw, and then and it was like, you couldn't edit it. It was one take. That's it. No going back. No. You could re-record it if you wanted, but you couldn't fix anything or, edit anything. So you just had to wing it. And I did that for about 9 months, and it grew to what I considered to be a big audience, which was probably an audience of about 75 people, but for me, that was huge, like just being on people are calling, 75 people are calling and listening to me talk about wrestling. So that was like my little introduction. It only lasted 9 months. The contract ran out. I had the option to keep it going and pay for it myself if I wanted, but I didn't want to. And I didn't have the money to do that at the time. And that was probably 98, 99 and 2000. Were the years. About over 20 years ago now is when I was doing that. But it was kind of a lot like this, except you would, after Raw, instead of getting on the internet watching YouTube, you'd call these hotlines and listen to random people give their opinions on it or whatever. So it was a totally different game being played back then with that stuff. And it would be on no cell phones either. This would be straight landline stuff. Wow. And you'd call, I'd lay in my bed. I worked at 9 to 5 jobs, so I'd have to go to bed and lay in bed and listen to these reports as I, fell asleep and put them on speaker. So just looking how that used to be compared to how this is now, you would have told 1999 Greg that this would be, I wouldn't even understand what you're saying, Wait, I can talk to 2 people from Singapore live, I don't even know. Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah. Like maybe by a phone, but video too, that's insanity. So
I think some of our younger listeners listening to this right now probably like, what, really? It's probably blowing their minds. It's totally different time, man.
It was, there was no, and like magazines, that was the internet. I've got tons of magazines, and I just thumb through them and I'd read little things. These were kayfabe magazines too. They weren't telling you anything special. They were they'd give you rankings and match rankings. It was the only way to keep up with the product because you didn't have 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, 2 of NXT, 2 of AEW. You had 1 or 2 of Raw. SmackDown wasn't even around. And then you had a couple of weekend shows, Mania and Superstars. It wasn't shoved up your butt.
Right.
You had a little, there wasn't so much wrestling. You didn't know what to do with it. You needed more. And that's the biggest difference now. Raw and shows back in the day left me wanting more.
Exactly.
Now they leave me wanting less. It's like, can we shave this by about half? Do we need a 3-hour Raw? Can we do an hour and a half here? So to me, that's the biggest difference is every night during the Attitude Era, I would turn off Raw and just would count the days till the next one. you know, where, you know, now I'm still counting the days, but only because I'm dreading it coming up on the horizon. You know? I'm like, oh God, 3 more hours of Raw that I have to watch and make now I make notes. You know, back in the day, I was just watching it for fun, and I would tape them and record them onto VHS tapes, but I would never have to like make notes. You know, now I have to do my homework and I have to watch a show that's not very good and write it down. So it's just
how crazy would it have been if social media actually existed during the Attitude Era?
I can't even. I've talked about that a lot. I can't even imagine. So many guys would have been, you know, I think Austin and Rock and some guys were so good that they wouldn't have gotten turned on. But there would have also been a lot of guys that fans would have just found something wrong with, or we would have canceled them for some reason, or whatever, or WWE pushed them too much, they'd get mad. Probably the best example that I can remember of fans being smarky back then was with Edge and Christian during the Dudleys and Hardy Boys feud when they were having all those TLC matches. And that was, I think if there was a social media, all the fans would be complaining about Edge and Christian for not taking any bumps. Because that was, I always remembered the fans being so mad because not only would the Dudleys and the Hardys take all the gnarly bumps, Edge and Christian would win.
They always win.
Every one of those matches, every time they would win, except for that first one. The Hardy Boys won with the sack on top of there or whatever. But all the TLCs, they won every time, and the fans took that as an insult. Oh, you know, Jeff Hardy's killing himself out there. Bubba Ray Dudley is breaking his neck, and the 2 guys that don't do anything, they climb up and retrieve the belts. Fans were mad. So that's one thing that I could really see on social media, people complaining. And so if it existed back then, it wouldn't have been as fun. It's ruined the fun a lot because, you know, you can't just watch a show now. You have to give your 2 cents about it. And then if somebody has an opposite 2 cents, that now has to upset you. And you have to, you know, concern yourself with it. I'm like, it's permissible to not. I put that on Twitter tonight. I said, it is permissible to watch a show and not care what anybody else thinks of that show. It's allowed. Believe it or not, you don't have to put, you know, I really didn't like AEW. I don't know why people like that. I'm like, it's not your job to worry about why I like it. You know, it's not your job. You know, it's my job. You know, don't you have something better to do at all? You know, so that is really sucked a lot of fun out of it. Social media can be fun with wrestling and stuff too, if you interact with the right people, but it can also just be, you know, really annoying. I'm like, God, these entitled fans that are just don't appreciate anything. Wrestler can go out there and kill themselves, you know, but if your name's Charlotte Flair, doesn't matter. You're public enemy #1. Doesn't matter what you do to your body or what you do to yourself. You know, once they get that idea in their head, they do not let it go. And that would have ruined a lot of things in the Attitude Era and would have ruined a lot of the fun. You know, a lot of the fun. Oh, that Vince McMahon Austin segment wasn't realistic. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun, you know? Like who gets their boss arrested, you know? Like it's not it's not supposed to be freaking serious, you know, or whatever. So I think the fans would ruin a lot of that now. You know, some of the more fun stuff.
I've always wondered whether all those like pushes that happened during the Attitude Era would have been ruined if there was like a lot of haters, if there was like Rock haters while he was, you know, on top. Or would it have, you know, they won't be able to push them to the moon?
Probably not. And there was, Rock did have, so I do remember that too. Rock had a few detractors. A lot of people thought he was all mic and no in-ring work, but he was super good and super athletic. And I thought a lot of people were mistaking him for like another Hogan who could talk but couldn't wrestle. You know, but then as years went by, I'm like, Rock can wrestle and he's good and he's real good and he's athletic as hell. And so I remember in the early days of Rock, some people felt like he got the title too quick because he did. 2 years is fast, you know, but you're still in that building stars mode and you needed to build something else in the long run. It turned out to be a big, one of the best decisions they made. But a lot of people are like 99, his heel run, didn't think he was ready and things like that. So you're right. Pushes would have been affected. Well, WWE doesn't care. They'll push whoever they want. But I definitely think, you know, Push's popularity maybe would have been affected because they would have resisted somebody that they didn't deem worthy. You know, well, like Vince and everybody else who's been in this business 50 years think they're worthy, you know, but, you know, you're saying no. Okay. I was like, we'll take your word for it. But yeah, you're right. The pushes and the fun would have been greatly compromised.
Yeah, also, when you look back at the Attitude Era stuff, like a lot of it wouldn't hold up today in terms of quote unquote cancel culture, right? People would get upset at everything, just about. I mean, when you look back, the bikini matches, the first blood matches, Inferno matches.
You wouldn't be able to do. You couldn't do what you did then. And even then, like people still talk about the glory Attitude Era days. Like in 98, the roster was still kind of weak. They still, you know, WCW still had the Jerichos and the Benoits and all that stuff, and the NWO and WWE was still trying to figure out ideas, and their mid-card matches were like DOA and the Truth Commission and, you know, and Bob Holly or whatever, you know, they didn't have like a really strong storylines underneath. And, you know, they did things like the Brawl for All and the Intercontinental title, you know, their lineage got ruined by hot potatoing that thing around. So the Attitude Era was not cookies and rainbows. Like there was a lot of things that even then you're like, oh God, like this is just bad all around. But now it wouldn't even be allowed. Like nobody would even, you know, but back then too, people didn't care. It was a very young audience. It was a 25-year-old male audience. So they wanted the bikinis. They wanted the, you know, Sable strutting around there with nothing on because it was awesome. You know, where, you know, now it's like, you know, it would bring up so many other issues that it wouldn't even be able to, it wouldn't fly anyway. But, you know, even if it did, looking back, some of that stuff was really silly, you know. Some of it was fun. Some of it was fun. I love the choppy PP stuff, but it was silly. It was really silly, you know, like, come on, you know, but it's like, if you look at it, it was entertaining, but there's some stuff like that just fell completely flat. They tried you know, Hawk falling off the Titantron, you know, you know, little things like that. I'm like, you know, Terry Runnels getting the miscarriage. I'm like, is that something you even need to do? You know, like I don't think they really knew what they could get away with and what they should try, but they didn't care. Like people were just going to the show. So like, we can really throw anything out there. You know, they'll look back on it and probably say it sucked, but they'll pop for it for that night. You know, they did. They popped for everything.
Would you argue that actually the roster today is perhaps the most like diverse athletic roster that we ever had?
Easily. By a mile. Like that's like as far as like athletic talent. You know, like you don't have any of those Rocks or Stone Colds or anything, but like what was Austin doing besides punching and kicking? You know, and now, you know, back when even the WCW's cruiserweight days, think about what Ricochet could have done if he was in there with Malenko and Jericho and Ray and Eddie, you know, and those guys. I mean, it'd been phenomenal. And he's more athletic than they were. They were considered the most athletic of, you know, the crew. And in WWE, you had guys like Taka Michinoku and a few other, and Shawn and Owen, who could wrestle fast and hard. But now, like somebody like Cedric Alexander or, you know, or a Ricochet, or like the crazy amount of talent they have there. You're right. The athletic talent is not even close, you know, because like I said, who was their undercard? It was Miguel Perez and DOA, you know, and you know, and Brian Lee or whoever the underneath, you know, a lot of just underneath crap that they had, and guys weren't really, you know, that over. That didn't start until 2000, where I felt like some of the mid-card talent had stories they were getting over, you know, but in those early days of the Attitude Era, even when Mick Foley or Mankind and Triple H were feuding in 97, that wasn't even that great. They were two mid-card guys, you know. Hunter won King of the Ring. They wrestled the Stampede. They wrestled in the cage at SummerSlam. That was all good, but it was just still like, I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was that over. So I think now the talent is far better. Only now WWE has too much. They don't know what to do with it. It's almost too much talent, much talent for their own good. Now they're hoarding it to where athletic guys are sitting there doing nothing. You know, WWE, when they brought in Too Cold Scorpio to be Flash Funk, they were so excited about him being able to flip around and stuff. I'm like, imagine what they could have done with Mustafa Ali now or something like that. If he would have been around in 96, it would have been amazing, especially probably on Nitro if those guys were there, because they had more of that going on. But yeah, I definitely agree that the talent is better now than from an athletic standpoint than it's ever been.
It's very interesting because actually in the Singapore wrestling scene, we do have a WWE connection. Do you remember this one wrestler from Kai En Tai called Dick Togo?
Yeah, Togo.
Dick Togo, right?
He was at ECW. I watched him a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened? Dick Togo. What happened was he actually he became a trainer back in Japan, and one of our Singapore wrestlers actually went and trained in his dojo, they opened up a dojo in his name here in Singapore. It's called Grapple Max. So
cool.
basically, so our head, the owner of this Grapple Max, this wrestler, he's a Singapore wrestler, and I think he's won championship in the region. He's been to Japan to train. Dick Togo is actually the head advisor for the wrestling school here in Singapore. Yeah,
that's great.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. And another interesting thing because about the Singapore wrestling scene, the Southeast Asian wrestling scene, a lot of the wrestlers, the independents, they come through here. So we've actually had former WWE superstars working, the indie shows in the local promotions here. Most recently, and it's pretty weird because he never advertised it on his site, but Kenny Omega did a show last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Singapore, and he actually wrestled one of our top local wrestlers. And why I brought this up was because three of our three of our local wrestlers actually went to do a tryout for WWE in Shanghai. They had a tryout in Shanghai, and it was pretty interesting because I think Tensai was Matt Bloom. He was actually heading that entire training session and the entire seminar. I foresee WWE like in the future they're gonna open, the plan is right from Triple H, they're gonna open performance centers all over the world.
Yeah.
In the UK, in Japan, in other regions. Do you see that's the strategy for WWE right now? You know, trying to make it as global, having a talent that kind of representing all the different nationalities.
Yeah,
I'm
like, it's double-edged. I'm all for them doing it, but I'm also worried they're going to corner every single indie market in every city around the world, and they're going to murder it. You know, like, and they're just like they did that in the UK a little bit with the NXT UK. Like, I think they did a lot of damage to some of those promotions over there. So like, as long as they're not doing it so they can, you know, so they can just be anything wrestling related is going to be WWE. You know, I think that's what they're trying to accomplish. I think they have more selfish motives for it than actually trying to want to get to places and finding the best talent that's clearly all over the world that maybe hasn't been found or discovered yet. In a weird way, I'd almost trust the more local schools. You know, like a Dick. I'd rather go to Dick Togo's school than a performance center at first. You know, like, I don't want to just learn WWE's way. You know, like, I don't want to learn, you know, promos and how to do your little entrance and your routine and where the hard cam is. That can come later. I'd rather have a grizzled veteran teach me, you know, the bare basics, the ins and outs, what to do, what not to do, and then let WWE bastardize everything else. But at least like just the initial laying the groundwork, I'd much more trust someone like him that's, you know, doesn't have any ties to WWE to kind of give you that initial teaching. And then from there, so WWE, if their plan is to go performance centers everywhere, that's great, because it's going to get some guys some jobs and some money and get them trained and everything. And they could find their way to TV, but it's just going to add more. And, you know, and they might do some damage to an indie market in a place that doesn't get WWE very much. And now it's like, now you're even taking away the little bit of wrestling that we do have, you know, by signing all the best indie guys anyway are over there now. And of course they're not going to let them wrestle anywhere else. So now we go to indie shows and now we're left with the scraps, you know. It's like the B team at the strip club on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like, we want the stars, you know, we want to do it, you know, or whatever. So I worry that could be troublesome with them doing that. You know, and I'm all for them expanding and I get it. But you know, if they're going to do it and it's going to hurt, like, I worry if they go to Japan, because there's been talk about doing like an NXT Japan. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to have to worry about, you know, some of I don't want the whole Bullet Club signing with WWE or something, or something that's just going to do some damage to New Japan or, you know, some of the female promotions over there or whatever. So I'm slightly nervous about that, but I guess I'm okay with it at the same time too.
And it's a very interesting thing that you brought up about Japan, because you know, in Japan, women's wrestling, they have their own promotions, right? Stardom, and of course, you know, the late Hana Kimura was from there, and a lot of the female wrestlers in WWE attributed or came from that background. We've even seen, you know, last year videos when Sasha Banks was on her break, she went to Japan to train with you know, wrestler Meiko Sakatomura. I can't remember. I can't pronounce her name properly, right? No, it's Sakamoto. I can't remember. Okay, but anyway, the point I was trying to make was, do you see that, you know, it's important to keep this style, you know, unique to the regions. Like, you know, Mexico should always have the luchador style. Japan should always have a strong style. You know, like you said, don't bastardize the entire product.
Yeah, I don't want to. And plus, there's so many different parts of the world that are known for certain styles and certain ways, and I don't want to see WWE screwing that up. You know, it's like, it would almost be sacrilege for me for them to come in there and change decades of history, and, you know, and plus, especially with the fans, what they're used to and what they're used to seeing, and even, you know, fans now, because you can watch wrestling for all over the world. Part of the reason why I like watching Japanese wrestling sometimes, because it's just a different style. It gets you away from what you're seeing day in and day out 6 times a week here in the States. And it's just, it's like alternative music, or it's just an alternative something. Like, I know the vibe, the feel, the atmosphere, the way the work in the ring is going to be. It's different. And that's why I watch it. where if everything just becomes WWE style and they start going places and teaching everybody to do WWE's way, when you make your entrance, stop at the ramp before you go down and look both ways so the camera can catch you, and then go do your, and don't forget to do your dance when you get in the ring, like things like that. I'm like, you're killing what I love about it. So yeah, that's one thing, especially like with Mexico and Japan, that audience and that wrestling has a very specific feel and vibe to it. And I don't want that tampered with at all. You know, if I want WWE, I'll watch them. Kind of thing.
And one big thing about Japan is the way they treat and respect their veterans. I think you've mentioned it in your podcast about how, you know, the standoff they did was for Jushin Thunder Liger was amazing, right?
Yeah. That was
yes.
great.
So
that's what I like, because they're different people over there and they just do things differently and they have a different version of respect. You know, we're here to show respect, you got to scream at the top of your lungs and be obnoxious idiot. You know, there I was so impressed with that, just stone silence. You could have heard a pin hit that floor from 50 yards away when they're doing that 10 bell for Liger. And I thought about it too. I'm like, you know, we don't know what the future of The Undertaker is going to be, but if he has some sort of a ceremony like that, I would almost like to see something similar to where instead of everybody cheering like when Ric Flair retired, just do a big moment of silence, right? Where he just stands in the ring with his hat and coat on and puts his head down, like in the old Undertaker pose, like if he's standing in the coffin, and you just get 30 seconds of not a word. I don't think the fans here are capable of doing that, but it would be so cool to have that level of respect that Liger got here for somebody. But I was just so impressed with that, you know, because that's just the way they are. Nobody's in the audience is going to go into business for themselves there and scream out and hoot and holler, where that's just the way not the American fans are. They always got to be in the center of something. They can't shut their mouths. You know, even like when Owen Hart died and they're doing the 10 bell, there's some asshole yelling in the background. You can hear him. You're like, will you shut the fuck up? You know, like, God, show some respect. You know, so yeah, that's another thing that I really like about that type of wrestling, is because you don't see that level of respect, not a sound. You know, the fans here wouldn't have that discipline to do that, where you know they do over there.
I want to share like a quick story, because actually last year I went to Japan, and I went to watch a wrestling show in Japan at the world famous Korakuen Hall, which is beside the Tokyo Dome, right? And it was this promotion where the headliner was Ultimo Dragon. Cool. He's still alive and thriving over there. And it's pretty crazy because, you know, as a longtime fan, to see, you know, his work in WCW, he was in WWE for a cup of coffee, and to see like an entire mythology and legend of Ultimo Dragon when he is in Japan, the respect for him and the way he's being treated like a star, like they don't play around with their veterans. Even the heels, the younger heels that want to so-called disrespect the legend, do it in a respectful way. It's pretty crazy, like in terms of how unique certain philosophies, how they approach wrestling. There is no one right way about it, right?
No, there's definitely not one right way about it. It just kind of depends on what your audience is, you know, and how they usually behave and things like that. And that's why, you know, that's why I think a lot of stuff that works over there wouldn't work here, kind of thing, just because they're just different types of fans, you know, just different people. But that's really cool, like all the respect that they always show over there to a lot of the legends, and you know, just even the way they react in the audience. Nobody, you know, there's a lot of just clapping and stuff, you know, just you know, clapping, appreciating the moves, you know, where everybody else got to scream out something, or, you know, they're just more vocal or whatever. They just, you know, kind of appreciate the move as it happens, and then, you know, refocus and keep watching and stuff. And yeah, you're right. And the respect for all the legends there and the people who put their time in and have a long career, you know, they're treated differently by not only the fans, but the opponents and stuff too, you know. Even when I think it might have been the final night of Jushin Liger's retirement, and Minoru Suzuki had kind of bowed down to him. I mean, that was just like incredible. You see that here, and like in WWE, sometimes an opponent will show respect and they help you up and stuff, but that was just so incredible, you know, with their history and everything, the way he just kind of gave him a little bow and, you know, and got out of the ring, like things like that. It's cool to see. And it's always awesome when we see it in WWE, but that's just something that you're always like guaranteed to get there. You know, you're always gonna have that different level of respect, you know, and respect is something I think wrestling drastically needs, you know, because it's to me, it's just full of like a lot of just young fans that are just angry and full of P&V and, you know, just want to be heard, you know, kind of thing, where it's just shut up and have respect is my philosophy. So I don't know.
Okay, we are reaching like the last few questions. We didn't realize we've had such a great long conversation already.
Yeah, it was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, so the last topic we want to talk about is actually back to the podcast, back to the podcasting world as being a wrestling commentator and all that. For you, when was it that you decided to take it seriously, and how do you build and keep your fan base engaged?
I think when I was going to start taking it seriously was around 2015, so only 5 years ago. Up until then, I was doing it a lot, and I was getting good views and subs and everything, but I wasn't treating it even then as an obligation. I felt like, if I have to drop it, I have to drop it kind of thing. And then in 2015, I'm like, I still wasn't on camera yet. So I was like, this is basically a podcast. So, and all I'm doing is on YouTube. So that's when in 2015, I started the website and started making my podcasts available on the podcast, the Spotify's and things like that, and downloadable versions and stuff. I bought a better computer to help produce that stuff. So I'd say around the summer of 2015, that's when I felt like I had enough subscribers to start taking it seriously, give it a real go, create a schedule, because if you can be consistent with your upload on this day, every day, or every week, that really helps your audience keep track of you. And if you're all over the place, that's a problem. I've noticed that on YouTube, like early on. So I'd say it was 2015 was when I started saying, okay, make a schedule, start doing shows on this particular night and this particular day, and plug it, make sure you put all the stuff on social media and treat it for real. And so, yeah, it's probably been 5 years since I was like, okay, this is a big deal now. I'm starting to see some money coming in from this, not just like extra little bonus play money, but, this is a part of my income now kind of thing. So 2015 up until now, and even more so now when I'm still not as big as anywhere near as big as I want to be, but big enough to where I'm like, I can't just decide tomorrow I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm kind of in now. Like I'm kind of counting on this income now. Right. This is my job. And that's the thing. I never considered a job before up until maybe 2 years ago. And I'm like, this is officially my second job. Without it, my financial situation changes. And so that's like exciting in a way. I'm like, wow, now I actually am doing this for a purpose. I'm no longer I'm doing it because it's fun as well. But now it's like, this is a real part of my life that I just can't like turn off. So probably 2015 was when I said, okay, time to take it more seriously and see if we can get any bigger, kind of thing. So we got 30,000 subscribers. I feel like it should be 130,000, but I'm still happy with it nonetheless, even though I'm 100,000 less than where I would like to be. Right. Because with numbers like that, I can quit my job and do it full time. So I feel I need to get 4 times bigger than what I am. Is basically my goal.
Is that the dream, to do it full time?
Yeah, I would love to, because I'm just getting older now, and I'm on my, and I don't want to do this. I've been in restaurants for 27 years. It's a great living and everything, but I'd much rather do that. I'd much rather do this. So if I can get to this, I will. But otherwise, it's a good 1-2 punch. This is my second job. I'd like this to be my first job and maybe pick up a second job on the side. But right now it's reversed. Right now I have my main job, pays most of the bills. This is my second side hustle kind of thing. And I'd like to tip those scales in the other direction to where maybe I'm not doing this full time, but I'm doing it mostly full time. Kind of thing. So that's the ultimate goal. We'll see if we get there. Still got some work to do, but we're gonna try.
This is the conversation that me and Young have every single time, because like we mentioned before, we both have full-time jobs, and this is like kind of our hobby yet. But we are, in terms of like starting out and trying to monetize the content, we haven't reached that level yet. And for us in Singapore, podcast is it's been there, it's been all around, but only in the last 1 or 2 years that they started to have a boom, that there's locally produced podcasts going out there. So we were kind of like, at the initial wave, and we managed to catch it, so to the point that, we became like the top wrestling podcast here in Singapore, in the region. Do you have any advice in terms of like monetizing your content that you put out, so that, you can make it into a sustainable career? Right.
Well, in terms of monetizing, I'm not familiar beyond YouTube, and you guys are not on YouTube, right?
No, you're not.
No. Okay. So in terms of monetization and stuff, I'm not really sure if I could offer advice on that part of it, other than just stay consistent. And if you have a schedule right now, stay with that for sure. And you might want to at least look into YouTube as another platform just to throw your stuff on, and just put it, because that'll get more people. I mean, more people could share it, plug it. Right. And that could, because there's some people that do that. Another friend of mine from YouTube, Solomon Monster, you know him, Jason Solomon?
Yeah.
Solomon Monster, yeah. And I've known him for years, and he is like you guys. He was always podcast, but in recent years, he came to the realization, hey, maybe I should put some clips up on YouTube. He's making a killing. off of stuff, that he probably wasn't, getting on his normal podcast. He's putting like little clips of, maybe not the whole show, maybe little clips. Hey, this 5-minute exchange, between me and Foreign was really good. Maybe we'll just post that. Somebody will see it. Oh, I want to hear more. Put the link in the description to your podcast where it is on Spotify and Stitcher and all that stuff. And they can kind of go from there. I think, I shouldn't be saying this because I suck at it, but being on as many platforms as possible. I'm only on like YouTube and the podcast sites and Twitter. I don't have an Instagram or anything, and I need to get that. But
yes,
I think a good start. I mean, I don't know how big YouTube is in Singapore, but it's a big wrestling online tool. And I don't know, one of you was in the chat. You popped in.
Yeah, that's me.
That was true, right?
Me. Yeah.
So like maybe doing something like that. And if you were to do that, I mean, I could plug you. I could plug you in and stream and, hey, go check out these guys. And it might just get, a little bit of help and traction. But but that's only from that side. But otherwise, if you have no interest in that, just keep doing what you're doing and just build your audience. Be consistent. And if you already have a pocket of people that want to listen to you and like you, cater to them first, and be there for them. And then as that grows, then maybe branch out. But I don't know if I'm the right person to really give advice from a purely podcast perspective, because both you guys have good setups here. Your audio is good. There's really no reason why you can't do video. And are you saying you're putting this on there's a way for you to upload this video style too?
Yeah, so actually this could actually be our officially first video that we put up on a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
I was about to say I could put it on mine too if you wanted, but yeah, you should do that or whatever. But if there's a way to do that, I would definitely probably maybe start a YouTube channel, not as your primary platform, but just as an extra one, to where people can discover you and find you. And that, because I think if I would have not done YouTube and just stuck with the podcast, it might have taken me longer to grow, than people just going to my website, downloading the MP3 or going to Spotify or Stitcher, iTunes, or, wherever. YouTube's almost like, I don't know, just gets easier because everybody's on it.
Right.
And, YouTube after a wrestling show, YouTube it's a party. It's a party. Everybody's online. Everybody's jumping around from stream to stream and stuff. So, I might recommend the YouTube because that's my primary platform and it's worked out well for me. So I think that could help maybe get some extra eyeballs, and then you'll be amazed. Then you'll start hearing comments. People message you on Instagram or something. Hey, I found you on YouTube. Just discovered you. Now I subscribe. I'll leave you a review on iTunes or whatever. So I think that alone could probably help.
We just started putting up these videos on Facebook. So
okay. I was wondering when you said video, I wasn't sure what platform you were using. Okay, so Facebook. Oh yeah, and Facebook's huge too. So
but we definitely need to look into the YouTube thing, I think, as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's super easy just to start. Yeah, just start a channel. If you have any, I don't know if you have artwork and graphics, put your stuff up. You got the T-shirt on, so just do all that and try to keep it maybe simple at first, and then elaborate from there. I'll be happy to give you guys pointers if you have questions or anything. I can help you out behind the scenes or something if you're like, hey, how do we do something? But I think that would be a good maybe start. And then if you can grow an audience on YouTube, you can monetize right there. And then if you ever wanted to venture into live streaming or stuff like that, that's when the really loyal people, the people that are there listening to you and want to see you grow and get better, they can show their support by engaging, by chatting, by donating, by all sorts of little things. So where I don't know how, like Facebook might not allow you to reach that many, people, where on YouTube, you can be found just by a simple search. If somebody was, searching around or whatever, and they see wrestling podcast. Oh, there's this one. Let me click on it. Never heard of them before. Oh, wow. This is kind of good. So I think it's easier to get discovered almost like by accident or by word of mouth or by help from other colleagues and plugs and things like that. So that's probably what I'd recommend there, because that's really my only experience is the YouTube. I did the podcast sites as a secondary platform.
Wow.
YouTube is first, then the podcast is kind of second. It's just an extra option. If people want to listen to me when they're working out, driving in their car, they don't have to watch me. They can listen to me too, kind of thing. So I was YouTube first, podcast second, and you guys are kind of podcast first and maybe YouTube second. So I think that would be a good start and a good help, because that's a huge, huge, huge platform to where, people can, and you can maybe put a touch on a controversial topic or something that's going to, where the title is going to catch somebody's eye, or whatever. So if you do a podcast the night after something crazy happens, just upload that clip of you talking about that crazy thing. Like everybody wants an opinion on why Nia Jax hurt somebody, or whatever. Like put that little clip up, and half the people are going to agree with you and half are going to disagree, but you're still going to have, people listening, and and they might want to comment on it, and then somebody might respond to their comment, and then they'll get in a comment war with somebody, which means every time they do that, they keep clicking on your video every time. I love it when 50 people argue in my comment section because they have to keep coming back to that video to do that. And clicking it and clicking it and clicking it, and the views are going up, and all they're doing is just arguing with somebody in the comments, but it's helping. It's helping the video. So if you guys decide to do that, let me know. I'll plug the crap out of it on my streams and maybe get you that initial little group of subs, and then it can just kind of grow from there, kind of thing. So
I mean this conversation has been amazing. I mean, if it would be a great honor if you would like to, like, just as a bonus content, put it up on your channel. We'll probably think about starting out on our own channel. I think after this conversation, it definitely gave us a lot of food for thought.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd be happy. And if you want to, I don't know how this all works. I mean, we're still doing the podcast here, but if there's a way for me to get this video, I'll throw it up on my channel if you want. It's up to you. So it's up to you.
That would be awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
So if you guys want to hear more from here's an interview I did. If you guys want to hear more from them, their links are in below. Click on it, take them over. I mean, this is your podcast, so I don't want to take it from you. But if you wanted me to throw it up on my channel just for introduction to who you are,
that would be awesome.
Can help a little bit. So
last year we interviewed our first wrestling YouTuber that we interviewed was Chris Van Vliet. Do you know him?
Yeah.
His YouTube channel. Yeah. So that was the first guy from US that actually got in on our channel.
Nice.
And
I didn't know.
Yeah. He was pretty cool about us, and he told us about how YouTube really helped kickstart his career. Just the consistency of doing it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, he works hard. He used to do backyard wrestling and stuff. So I've talked to him a couple of times. Yeah, he's good. He's smart and driven and not lazy. Like, he goes and does it, and he goes out there and gets it and stuff. And so that's kind of what you want to do. So things like that. But that's you never know like how big you can get. I've seen some people have lapped me. There's people that have started after me that have 10 times more subscribers than me. Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret, who's a good friend of mine. He's been in my house a couple times. I've been on his channel, and he started out basically on a whim, maybe a couple years after I did, and he's got 300,000 subscribers right now, just crushing it because he was good at it. He just had an knack for it. He was good, and he had something to relate. It was relatable, and people liked him, and that sort of thing. So you do it right, and you stay consistent and motivated, then And I think you guys definitely have the audio and video set up to do YouTube just fine. Because another problem I see sometimes with YouTube, anybody can decide to start a podcast, anybody.
Yeah.
But sometimes I see people who have a podcast, but it's just on their phone and they're just talking into their camera, and then they upload that as their podcast. I'm like, I guess that's a podcast, but you're not even trying. Like, you got, make some notes, make people want to, when they click on the video, like, oh God, what this looks like, I'm watching it on a Sega CD. Like, get it on, like, it's the worst video quality I've ever seen. Like, if you have good, sharp looking stuff with good audio, people aren't going to pay attention, at least for a few seconds. Where if it looks like you're, broadcasting from a garage, in Alaska, then, it's different. But, and I think you guys have the setup for that, where it's, you look just fine. You add some graphics and whatever, it looked sharp.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's why I did this too, because I get a lot of emails like for interviews and stuff all the time, and I mostly ignore them. But because most of them are like, it's misspelled. Hey, I just started a podcast on my phone. I have 11 subscribers. Do you want to be on my show? And I'm like, I'd love to help you, kid, but I can't dedicate the time. But your email was so well put together. You had all your links there. You mentioned Chris Van Vliet in that very first email I think you sent me. And all the stuff, I'm like, I even mentioned to my girlfriend, I'm like, I was like, I think they're a growing podcast and they're somewhat new and not huge yet, but they certainly have their act together as far as, how they do. And I went to your podcast and listened to a few minutes, and I'm like, oh, they sound good. And, it doesn't sound like it's two morons running this. Like, they actually have, they have things to offer, things to be said that should be listened to and stuff like that. So I was like, as I haven't done an interview in so long or been a guest on a podcast, let's do this one. Especially you were saying like, oh, you're an influence of me and stuff like that. And, getting started and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Let's see if we can have some fun or whatever. So that's basically why I did, is because how well the email was put together. I'm like, oh, you guys don't look sketchy.
Right.
We are not some sort of extortion company from Singapore.
It's like they're not
bunch of scammers.
I'm not being sabotaged. Where when you finally get the Zoom thing started here, and they're like, we just want to tell you how bad we think you suck. I knew that wasn't going to happen here. So that's
that would have been pretty controversial content. That would have been
I know if somebody did do that to me, I would have stayed up with them. Like, okay, tell me. I was like,
oh my god, that would be quite funny. Okay, we wanted to extend like one last thing. I think that the same thing we told Chris Van Vliet. Like we said, our dream is to go to WrestleMania, to go to the US and catch a wrestling show as well. And if you ever want to come down to Singapore and like if you ever have a holiday here, you want to check out the wrestling scene here, we will be more than happy to show you around.
I'd love to. I've never gone anywhere too. I'm not much of a traveler. I've only been overseas once in Canada and Mexico, and I've not taken any far trips before. So I've never been. I really want to go to Japan.
Right.
At some point. That's a bucket list kind of thing for me. I was like, I want to go over there and go, because you went to the show and you did all that and you experienced that. And like, that's something I've never done. I would love to do that. So if I ever find myself, we'll party in Singapore.
All right.
You know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And likewise, if LA really does happen and this whole COVID-19 situation opens up, if you do make it to WrestleMania, we know who's the first person we're gonna find.
Yeah. I hope you get there, because I'm going. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be involved in a couple things, I think. So festivities for the weekend, provided it happens, as long as it goes off, and that's still a big if and stuff. But that's a show that's going to be fun. It's a beautiful new stadium there, and I think we could see the Undertaker go in the Hall of Fame. I think The Rock might have a match. We could see some stuff this year. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it goes properly and no more COVID and all that. So we'll see.
Seems like the plan. Seems like the road to WrestleMania, if it really happens.
Yeah.
Awesome,
I don't know. I mean, LA is a huge airport. You might be able to get a direct flight from where you are. I don't know. Right into LA. So we could. Might be manageable. We'll party. We'll do a live stream. We'll do a podcast one night.
Yeah, let's do that, man.
During the weekend. So
that is the dream.
That is the dream. Yeah.
Coronavirus be gone.
Yeah, you guys have to fly. I just have to drive an hour and a half up there. But yeah, you got a little ways to go. It might be on the pricey side, but if you can do it and bring it. It'll be fun.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time out, man. We really appreciate this chat.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've been talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Since exactly. Yeah. It was, quarter after. Nice.
So like, is it like 3 a.m. where you are right now?
1:16 a.m. for me.
Oh boy.
But I'm up till 4 every morning.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'll be I'm gonna eat one.
Oh no, okay.
Oh man.
I do that that's just the way I roll, and that's how I get all my podcast stuff done. Is I'll probably work a little bit tonight on tomorrow's Money in the Bank stream and get that prepped and ready, and for tomorrow.